Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and this is Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app, or on YouTube. And thanks so much for joining us today. We today are going to have a mainly sunny day ahead. Our high is 22. So pretty similar to yesterday, although we don't have a chance of showers in our forecast. So pretty straight ahead. And when that sun comes out, we're reminded that 22 feels pretty nice at this time of year. So that is our forecast for Winnipeg. Of course, more details through the show on what the rest of Manitoba is going to be like. Let's say good morning to the team. We're on air with you till 8:37 with the morning show. Corey Funk will pick up the phone to answer calls on your commute. Hi, Corey. Corey's also our director of the program. Good morning, Abby Adeyemi, who's behind the controls of the program, our technical producer, also behind the glass in our control room. Abby, of course, will be on air with us covering weather. And good morning to Mr. Kevin Nipatebo, who is behind the controls of YouTube this morning. Hi, Kevin. All right, let's go to Heather Wells, who's here with our news headlines today. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning. A relative of a couple killed in the Carberry bus crash last June is conflicted with the decision not to charge the driver who crossed in front of an oncoming semi. 17 people were killed, 8 others injured. Yesterday, the Crown and RCMP say that bus driver had blind spots that contributed to him not seeing the semi, and that played a role in the crash. So we'll hear more reaction to that. You can cancel this off your summer calendar.
The place where all the children can live.
Neil Young and Crazy Horse say they've been forced to take a break from the rest of their Love Earth tour. They were to have played Winnipeg July 17th. We'll hear why they're canceling coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
Yeah, I got a refund coming my way. Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
A lot of people going to be disappointed, but also, of course, knew that this was probably, he's getting up there. Got to see him when you can. So hopefully his health will be okay. We'll have some more details on that, as Heather mentioned. Now, in the first hour of our program, the Canada Day long weekend's coming up. With it, prime travel season. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But we're going to talk specifically about what you can do out and about in Manitoba and in Winnipeg this long weekend. So stay tuned. Also, to a serious health story, an intrauterine device or an IUD is a common form of contraception, but getting it inserted can be very painful. Why is sedation not widely offered for the procedure? We'll learn more about that.
On Q.
I'm Talia Schlanger, sitting in for Tom Power. Karan Aujla was already a global superstar with massive chart-topping hits before winning his first Juno Award. He'll tell Tom about why Canada is a hub for Punjabi hip-hop.
Q. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Tonight in Atlanta, former U.S. President Donald Trump, current President Joe Biden, and a debate that could help one of them return to the White House. Our Washington correspondent Richard Madden will be watching closely. Richard, the stakes are high. Just how high are they?
Yeah, they're huge. I mean, two leaders presenting starkly different visions of the country, and there are a lot of firsts. The first presidential debate of this election cycle, the earliest debate in U.S. history, and it's the first time a former president is debating the current one. Two of the oldest presidential candidates to square off in a rematch. Now, President Joe Biden is widely expected to focus on issues like protecting democracy, reminding voters of the January 6 riots. He'll also defend women's reproductive rights and the importance to support key allies like Ukraine and NATO. Now, former President Donald Trump is expected to focus on economic anxieties, immigration, and crime. But he's also the first presidential candidate who's a convicted felon. But there's more to this debate beyond policy. Take a listen to political analyst Ron Brownstein, who says temperament and mental acuity will be closely watched.
In this case, we have one candidate, Donald Trump, where people are going to be looking a lot about questions of character, and one in President Biden that people are going to be looking a lot about questions of competence and capacity.
Now, both Biden and Trump are raising expectations on each other, and the debate itself is taking place in the key swing state of Georgia, which could determine who wins the White House in November.
And so, Richard, the debate format has changed. How will this be different from the traditional debates that we're used to watching?
So remember the last debate, the last time these two faced off in 2020? It was a mess. Trump interrupted Biden more than 145 times, and it went off the rails. But the rules have since changed. There'll be no studio audience, just the moderators and the candidates. Microphones will be muted when the other candidate is speaking, but we'll still see the split screen for reaction during tonight's 90-minute debate.
The CBC's Richard Madden in Washington. Thanks, Richard.
Thanks.
And you can watch the CNN presidential debate simulcast on CBC News Network or on CBC Gem starting at 9 o'clock Eastern, 9:30 in Newfoundland.
Un inquebrantable compromiso con el pueblo boliviano y con la democracia.
Bolivian police officers presenting a handcuffed former army general to the media. Juan Jose Zinier is accused of leading a coup attempt against the country's government. The president of Bolivia survived the attempt, and an investigation is underway. Manuel Rueda reports.
Bolivian President Luis Arce tried to stay calm as he spoke to his supporters in a building known as the Great Hall of the People. He salutes soldiers who wear their uniform with pride. Earlier, soldiers led by Army Commander Juan Jose Zúñiga tried to take over the presidential palace. But the rebellion was short-lived, it seems, because of a lack of support from police and army units elsewhere in the city. Within hours, thousands of protesters descended on the presidential palace, and Zúñiga and the troops under his command retired from the area. Arce then held a ceremony where he named a new army chief, as well as new leaders for Bolivia's Air Force and Navy. Zúñiga has since been arrested. The Bolivian president has been in a tough spot for several months, as fuel shortages caused by the government's diminishing reserves of US dollars undermine his popularity. Manuel Rueda for CBC News, Bogotá.
In France, voters begin casting ballots in the country's legislative elections this weekend. And if the polls are to be believed, the far right stands to make massive gains. The National Rally, the party formerly known as the National Front, advocates for an anti-immigrant, some say anti-Muslim agenda. The party is poised for an historic breakthrough in the first of 2 rounds of voting. CBC's Chris Brown reports.
At this rally against the far right in Paris, Chloe Riddell, who's a Socialist Party member, said electing the Rassemblement National would throw France back to the Dark Ages.
When the far right pretends that it defends women's rights, it actually takes it as a pretext to be racist and to be xenophobic.
La seule alternance crédible. The RN, as it's known, is led by 28-year-old Jordan Bardella. The party's platform vows to fight legal immigration, including cutting welfare and health care to immigrants. It also claims there's a link between violent crime and immigration. 63-year-old Lydia Lecoq said security is a big issue for her. We feel unsafe in so many places, she said. I think that Bardella has good advice and good ideas. Whatever the results are, Emmanuel Macron, who's been in power for 7 years, will remain as president. But if the far right does well Sunday as expected, he'd have to essentially share power. After his centrist party badly lost recent European elections, Macron gambled and called this vote, essentially daring voters to put the far right in power, which analyst Rem Montes says now appears to have been a bad call.
People who are not necessarily your typical far-right voter have been saying more and more bluntly that they will vote for the far right.
The far right has held power elsewhere in Europe, but France plays an outsized role in the EU, which is why Sunday's first round of voting could be among the most important ballots cast here in decades. Chris Brown, CBC News, Paris.
Israel's defense minister is drawing attention with his latest comments about the possibility of war with Hezbollah. Yoav Gallant told reporters Israel's military is capable of taking Lebanon, quote, back to the Stone Age. Gallant made the comment as he was wrapping up his trip to Washington. He also insisted his government prefers a diplomatic solution to the Israel-Lebanon border situation. But Canada is now making contingency plans in case Israel and Hezbollah, in fact, do go to war. The Chief of Defense Staff, General Wayne Eyre, told CBC News the military is drawing up plans to evacuate roughly 20,000 Canadians from Lebanon. Murray Brewster unpacks the challenges.
Well, we can't do it alone.
General Wayne Eyre on the enormous task of evacuating non-combatants from Lebanon.
It will very much be a coalition effort, and we are we're tied in very tight with our allies.
On Tuesday, Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly warned Canadians to leave Lebanon as quickly as possible. The Israeli army says it plans to attack Hezbollah in the southern portion of that country. All it needs is the political green light. Israeli media reported recently that Canada was looking at an evacuation of 45,000 people or more. But AIR says the figure they're working with is 20,000, and that's based on historic data from the last time the military had to do this in 2006. A Canadian military team is currently in Lebanon and coordinating with the embassy in Beirut in case the worst happens. Similar to 2006, the plan today involves evacuating people from Lebanon by sea to Cyprus, where they would board flights for Canada. In recent weeks, Hezbollah warned the island government could be a target if it assists Israel in an attack on Lebanon. Some of the militant group's missiles have a range to reach Cyprus. AIR, however, dismissed the threats.
We don't believe those threats are credible.
AIR says, as far as allies know, Israel has no plan to use Cyprus as a base for offensive operations. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Ottawa.
The people of Churchill Falls, Labrador, have reason for optimism today. The forest fire threatening their town has been downgraded to a Category 1, and Premier Andrew Furey says the forecast is looking favorable. The CBC's Peter Cowan is keeping an eye on the situation from St. John's. He joins us now. So, Peter, take us through the latest.
Well, the fire crews are really hoping that today they get some more help from the weather. It's only expected to be a high of 10 degrees, and there's a good chance of showers this afternoon, so that's giving crews a lot of hope. They plan to hit the fire with everything they can. They have 8 water bombers, 7 helicopters, and ground crews all ready to attack this fire. It's now just a smoldering ground fire with no visible flames. It's still not safe, though, for anyone to be in Churchill Falls, so for the 750 people who are evacuated elsewhere and waiting, it's been tough not getting any of those on-the-ground updates. But thanks to Sherry Hayes' high-tech bird feeder, she's been getting a real-time view of what it's like in her community.
There's no smoke in any of my pictures, like no heavy concentrated smoke. Makes me feel like it's a bit farther away from town, so we have a little more hope.
Just to be clear, Peter, that is someone who was evacuated and is able to keep an eye on her property because of the camera on her bird feeder?
Yeah, she just logs into the bird feeder and gets real-time picture updates that lets her keep an eye on everything going on in the town. And then she shares them with everyone else on the group chat so they can all see what's happening as well.
Amazing.
The hydroelectric plant in Churchill Falls that powers most of Labrador and a lot of Quebec is still up and running. Crews fixed a tripped power line yesterday, restoring the power to Western Labrador. As long as nothing else breaks, officials hope the power can keep flowing, even with no one left in town.
The CBC's Peter Cowan in St. John's. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. Remember, for news anytime, go to our website, cbcnews.ca. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. We're going to have a nice day today in the city of Winnipeg. A high of 22. Abby will tell us more in a moment. You're with the team at Information Radio. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and you can see that beautiful sky on YouTube with that gorgeous overhead shot. You're listening on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or on YouTube. You might be watching this morning. This hour on the program, are you already thinking about summertime? Who's not? The long weekend, Canada Day, is knocking on our door now. And so this hour on the program, are you ready for the car? It always sounds good till you're in the car and you're tired and the family's restless, and maybe if you have kids, they're screaming in the back. So what do you do to make sure that you've got all the right things to make the trip go smoothly? And what are you packing for food? We've got some good ideas, including how to make charcuterie. Stay tuned for that. We do, though, begin with revisiting what happened yesterday in Transcona with that house that exploded. So we don't have very much more detail this morning to share, but we're going to revisit what we do understand as we await more details later today. Here's what we do have details on in the news. Heather Wells is here with our stories. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, what we can say is that Winnipeg police are still on the scene of that house explosion in Transcona. It happened on Camrose Bay yesterday, and as you say, still no word what caused the explosion. The home where the blast happened, it's nothing but rubble, and the city says that it doesn't doesn't know if anyone was inside the home at the time. So we'll hear the latest on that as well. Manitoba's trucking sector is using temporary foreign workers at the highest rate in years. They're trying to find drivers, but some of the companies are being accused of taking advantage of newcomers. That story coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Let's get into what's happening in the forecast and say good morning to the rest of the team. Hello, Corey Funk.
Hello.
Hello, Abby Addy.
Hello.
So today looking really nice.
Yeah, looking really nice outside. It is clear, 13 degrees in the city at the moment. It's going to be mainly sunny with some clouds rolling in this afternoon. We're expecting light winds becoming breezy later in the day, and the highs will reach 22 degrees. Now, the normals for this period of the year should be around 25, but today we will be getting to 22 degrees. And tonight, some clouds will come in, and then I know we don't want to hear this, but some rain would also come with that in the evening. So, Mercy.
A lot, right?
Yeah, and you know, I've not said this in a while. I didn't say this yesterday, but I'm going to say today, there's a risk of thunderstorm also coming with that rain late into the overnight period. And we're going to be seeing about 10 to 20 millimeters. That's what's expected. Then more breezy as we get close to the midnight period, and it's going to cool down to 14. And that rain sadly will continue throughout the day tomorrow. Another 10 to 20 millimeters is expected, and some winds will come with that. But let's talk about today. It's clear in Winnipeg, 13 degrees in the downtown. It's going to be a beautiful day. We're looking at sunshine to start the day, then some clouds will come in the afternoon, and we're climbing to 20 degrees.
All right, thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
Let's find out about the morning commute. Corey Funk.
Hey, yeah, so far this morning, it's been pretty straightforward. I imagine there's probably a few people already on vacation.
Yeah, for sure.
So it has been pretty quiet, but school is still in session. But if you do see something going on, if you're walking, biking, driving, yeah, let me know what you're seeing.
Okay, school is still in quote-unquote session.
Yes.
So that leads us to our question we're going to ask this morning, and we'll see if we get calls on this. So Corey and I are thinking that, I don't know where you're listening from this morning. You know, you might be getting ready for work. Maybe you're already in an early morning office, coming off a night shift. You're there, but are you there?
Yeah.
This leads us to our question, right? We're going to do a bit of fill in the blank. Finish this sentence.
Yeah, finish the sentence. I'm at work, but my head is...
Where? Where are you in your mind?
Yes.
So, yeah, we'll use work. I'm at work/school, so we can include everybody there. But in my head, where are you in your head?
Yeah.
Where are you in your head?
Well, you know what? My head is looking. It's about looking 2 weeks away. I direct a trail race every couple of weeks. So I'm now refreshing the long-term forecast for July 7th.
Got it.
Because that's what I'm looking at, getting all those plans and stuff. So I'm in the trails directing the race.
And that involves now over 100 people, and it's up on Lester Beach, Bel Air, right? Near Grand Beach.
Yeah. It's called the Grandstand 15K trail race.
What year are you in for this?
Third year. We're doing it now. So
nice.
So I'm in race mode. But if my boss is listening, I am at work and I am engaged.
100% engaged.
Yeah, 100%.
788-3205. If you want to let us know where you are in your head, if you dare. 788-3205. Well, let's revisit Heather's top story. I mean, it was incredible yesterday. If you didn't see this story or follow the images or the video, please go to cbc.ca/Manitoba and check out what we're talking about. It was just gone. A house in Transcona, there and then gone. There's almost nothing left of that home in Transcona that blew up. Houses on either side, as we've been sharing, are charred and were pummeled by the blast. The man who lives next door shared with CBC that he has never felt anything like that in his life, and felt like he was blown off his feet. Part of his home is damaged in the back. Firefighters say they still don't know what caused the explosion, just to reiterate that, or if there was anyone inside the house at the time. So there are no, right now, reports of injuries to anyone in neighboring homes either. But several of those homes are too damaged to allow people to return. So it's not just exterior damage. Reporters spoke to some neighbors who were behind the police line yesterday, and we wanted to revisit some of those details in moments. Those people were anxiously waiting to go back and have a look at the damage.
My name is Brandy Nevis. I was not home. I had just left for a doctor's appointment. When we got out of the doctor's appointment, we had about 100 calls and messages telling us that our house exploded. Thank God it was not our house that exploded. It was 4 houses over. However, I have 2 6-month-old puppies locked in kennels downstairs. So we were very, very worked up and in a mad panic to get home and just see what the situation was.
Do you know who lives there?
There is an old gentleman that lives there. We are all hoping that he left this morning. That's what somebody had said. We're hoping that nobody was in the house, but we are yet to be told for sure if that's the case.
What was your reaction?
Severe panic, because people from all over the city were messaging me and just saying, we heard about it. And I thought, how big is this? My neighbor had called me and she was hysterically screaming, telling me I need to get home immediately. The houses had exploded and that they were evacuating everybody from our street. And we had just lost our family dog a year ago, so we're huge animal lovers. And me having my 2 6-month-old puppies in the basement, me and my daughter were in complete shock and panic, probably speeding home as fast as we could just to hopefully find them okay, which we did, thank God.
And so, thankfully your dogs ended up being okay.
Yes.
Were you allowed into your house to go get your dogs out?
No, but when we got here, I found one police officer who was an animal lover and understood what I was going through because I was pretty hysterical. I could see my house. I knew the door was open, and I was just praying anybody could go in there and go downstairs and get them. I eventually convinced him to do so. He got them into the yard, but one of the puppies is scared, and so she wouldn't come to him. So I did have to make my way through the police officers and the firemen to go to the yard to get my dog. They didn't want me to, but I wasn't going to leave her there. So, yeah, they're safe, thank God. Now we're just hoping that everybody else is safe.
Do you know the old gentleman very well?
Just to say hi or wave as he goes by, but we're not overly close with them. I'm very close with the rest of my neighbors who are all standing out here, and some of them were home and got thrown back and thrown to the ground. Some were showing me pictures of their house, how 100-pound mirrors were thrown off the walls, and so it was quite the explosion. I've heard from friends that live probably 2 miles away and they felt it at their house. I'm kind of glad I wasn't home because I think I would have really had some PTSD from this, but in the end, I'm happy that everybody seems to be safe. They've got the gas turned off now, so hopefully we'll get to go back in at some point.
Carl with a K, Lyn. It felt like, I don't know, it's hard to explain, like an earthquake. I was polishing my bike in the garage, the man door blew open, stuff was blowing in, I was blown over, caught the bike before it fell down. Then another one, boom, blew me back again. And stuff was just flying all over the place. It was on fire. I ran out, made sure my neighbor got out of her house. Everybody was on the phone. It was just, never seen nothing like that.
Where do you live in proximity?
Right beside it.
You live right beside where the explosion happened?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Do you know the neighbors?
No. I talked to him twice, I think. That's about it.
So you wouldn't know if the neighbor was home or not?
I seen him leave this morning, but he comes and goes. I don't know if he came back home because I was in the garage. So.
What sort of damage were you able to see on your own home?
Well, I seen the back deck was on fire, and I took a quick video with my phone. I went back and got it, and I sent it to my wife, and I said, our house is on fire. The neighbor blew up. What? She said, I'm on my way home. And sent it to my other 2 sons over here. And it's just, you don't know what to say. I mean, my legs are still shaking. It felt like it blew me right up off the floor. So I've never felt an explosion like that.
Can you imagine getting that call? Wow. Carl Lent speaking to reporters. He lives next to the home that exploded in Transcona yesterday. We also heard there from Brandy Nevis, who lives 4 houses away, as she said. Now, there is no word still this morning about those who live in the home or whether they were in the home at the time. Fire officials yesterday, if you were listening to Radio Noon, right at the end, we carried the questions and answers that were coming on scene. And they were asked, how often they had seen something like this, a home completely blowing up. And they said, while they've seen it in the past, it's rare, and they would not speculate on the reasons that they have seen something like this happen in the past. So we do expect more details today. And if you want to read what we know so far, please go to our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Are you ready to share your music with the world? CBC Music's Searchlight Contest is on, looking for Canada's next breakthrough musical act. This could be your time to shine. Enter an original song for a chance to launch your music career and win some great prizes, including an industry showcase, a distribution deal, and musical instruments. Get ready to take it to the next level. CBC Music Searchlight 2024. Enter now at cbc.ca/searchlight.
It is 6:22 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on the app or YouTube. It's 13 degrees, sunny in Winnipeg this morning already, and a high of 22. And we are staring down Canada Day long weekend. It has all of us thinking this Thursday morning that maybe you're at work, but are you at work? So we're asking you, if you're at work or school in body form, where are you in your head? 788-3205. Abby, it's your turn. You're getting put in the spot.
I'm just, in my head, I'm just walking by lots of food trucks.
Oh, I love that. What do you eat at food trucks that you love? I love a good food truck.
Anything crispy.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm your people. I am your people. Let's talk about some of the things going on this long weekend. Maybe in your head you're already celebrating for Canada Day and heading out and about to the various events. There are some spectacular events going on, and not all here in Winnipeg, of course. All communities seem to have things going on. I just want to highlight Thompson for a second this morning, because starting at 9:30 on Canada Day, they're having a community breakfast. And then through the day, listen to this lineup. They've got jigging and kids concerts. They've got food trucks for Abby, if you want to go to Thompson, Abby. They've got craft vendors. They've got free boat rides in the Burntwood River. There's going to be a bike parade for the kids. They've got free henna. They've got fireworks, tattoos, coloring, all kinds of different things going on. Most of the things in Thompson are going to be around the arena, and so you can check all of that out if you live up that way. In addition, here in Winnipeg, I will mention a few things. Of course, the big celebration is back at the Forks this Canada Day, and they are going to have gatherings, dancing, time for reflection at Canada Day as well, and the complicated history of our country. What is new this year is the Forks has sponsored, partnered with Two Spirit Manitoba and with the Inuit Resource Center. So there's creative cultural performances and programming through the day. And there's also basketball going on. So if you're a fan of the Sea Bears, some of them are going to be making appearances at the Forks on Canada Day. Basketball Manitoba has a 3-day tournament at the Forks, so it culminates on July 1st. You'll be able to catch the finals of that. And on site, of course, as you can imagine, there's going to be all kinds of different performances and activities. Things really kick off Monday at IUD Celebration Circle at 11 o'clock on Monday morning, and then
I flipped a coin, I was looking for my freedom. Forgot to call aside, still think I'm better off alone. Tired of this story, gotta skip out on this call. Just a little bit, just a little for some healing. All I got was sunburn and just a little high. 'Cause you got me jumping through the deep surf, trying to catch my breath, bracing for the fall. Sorry leaves me feeling quite indecent. Match point, you can keep it all. Just a little bit, just a little bit dirty now. Hands in, get your hands in, we're almost done. Just a little bit, just a little bit further now. Heartbreak hurts, but it never killed anyone. Pony up, gonna be here all weekend. Dig a little deeper, right down to the bone. 'Cause you got me scrambling for some meaning. I sent a message, but the bottle was cracked. I was thinking things out in my basement. The rain came, I didn't plan on that. Just a little bit, just a little bit dirty now. Hands in, get your hands in, we're almost done. Just a little bit, just a little bit further now. Heartbreak hurts, but it never killed anyone. Just a little bit, just a little bit dirty now. Hands in, get your hands in, we're almost done. Just a little bit, just a little bit further now. Heartbreak hurts, but it never killed anyone.
Lyn Hansen out of Ottawa, tune's called Just a Little Bit. Her latest album's called Just a Poet, and it's out now. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. And in traffic this morning, things should be pretty good for you in the city or the highway. Just a reminder, though, that we still have those two closures that are supposed to be cleared by tomorrow, but we knew they'd last the week. So they are the Louise Bridge being closed, and then through Headingley, they're doing some rail work. So Highway 1 right through Headingley, you're going to be detoured as you're going through. So keep that in mind. 788-3093 is where you can update anything on the commute. And stay tuned, because business news is coming up after your CBC Winnipeg news.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is 13 degrees. The day starts with sun and it ends with rain, but in between it's going to be beautiful. We're headed to a high of 22 with a south breeze. Winnipeg police are still at the scene of a house explosion in Transcona. It happened yesterday on Camrose Bay. We expect to learn more from police later today about what caused that devastating explosion. The home where the blast happened is nothing but rubble now. The city says it's not sure if anyone was in the house when it was destroyed. Several neighboring homes were also damaged. Manitoba trucking companies are running out of people to put behind the wheel. More businesses are turning to temporary foreign workers for help, but some are accused of taking advantage of newcomers who hope to live in Canada. Diwa Marcelino is an advocate for migrant workers. He's spoken to newcomers paying to get their work permit, which is illegal. While some businesses breaking the law have been penalized, he says enforcement has to be stronger.
The laws are useless if there's no enforcement. The laws are useless if workers don't know the law. The laws are useless if workers don't have the agency to complain. if they're fearful of being deported.
Marcelino is the brother of Manitoba's Labour Minister. The Manitoba Trucking Association also wants to root out companies exploiting temporary workers. They say most companies are great at supporting newcomers. A relative of a couple killed in the Carberry bus crash last June is conflicted with the decision not to charge the driver who crossed in front of an oncoming semi. 17 people were killed, 8 others were injured. The Crown and RCMP say the bus driver had blind spots that contributed to him not seeing the semi. That played a role in the Crown concluding there are no grounds for a criminal charge or an offence under the Highway Traffic Act. Frank and Rose Perzello died in the crash. Their niece, Chantel Urick, thinks the driver could have done more to check for oncoming traffic, but understands the Crown's decision.
There is no winners, and there's in this at all. There's only losers. And what I mean by that is that no matter what the Crown came up with, there wasn't going to be a good result.
Investigators say the driver was not impaired, nor was he texting at the time of the crash, and police say there were no mechanical problems with the bus. A city on the path towards reconciliation.
We extend our deepest apologies to the Dakota people.
Portage-la Prairie Mayor Sherilyn Knox at a ceremony at Dakota Plains First Nation. The city apologizing over a decision that led to the First Nation being removed from land it owned in Portage-la Prairie 100 years ago. Knox says the removal was clearly racially motivated, and making amends, she says, is the only way to move forward.
Our council, we believe in reconciliation, and we believe in recognizing wrongs of the past. We here today are here to right some of those wrongs and apologize to the Dakota people and make sure that they know that they are welcome in our city.
Knox hopes the apology sets a tone for other municipalities taking steps reflecting reconciliation. A reunion to help survivors of the Birtle Residential School heal. An organizer of today's gathering, Charlie Bittern, says meeting other former students is both exciting and painful because they all have shared experiences of being taken from their families and forced to attend residential school. He says sharing his story of survival helps him feel lighter.
There are some students we haven't met over 50, 55 years. It's meeting the old former survival students that are still alive. That's the whole idea.
Bittern expects about 100 people will attend today's reunion. He wants to make it an annual tradition in Birtle. Well, WestJet has canceled 25 flights scheduled for today and tomorrow as the airline prepares for the possibility of a strike by its mechanics. A work stoppage could begin as early as tomorrow evening. Alexis von Honsbroek is head of WestJet.
Right now, there is uncertainty over what's going to happen, so therefore all our guests should call us, the airline, and check for their flights.
The airline and the union reached a tentative agreement in May, but union members voted to reject the deal. Negotiations continue. Donald Trump and Joe Biden will face off tonight in Atlanta in their first presidential debate of the U.S. election. Brian Kemp is the Republican governor of Georgia.
There's definitely this fraction of people out there that maybe don't like either candidate, but at the end of the day, they got to decide who are they going to vote for that's going to make their life better.
CNN debate is going to have no live audience. You can watch that debate starting at 8 tonight Central Time on CBC News Network and on CBC Gem. Well, you can cancel this off your summer calendar. Neil Young and Crazy Horse say they have been forced to take a break from the rest of their Love Earth tour. That tour was going to play Winnipeg July 17th, but in a post, Neil Young's group says some of their band got sick after their Detroit stop and still haven't fully recovered. They promised to try to play some of the dates they're missing as time passes. If you had tickets to the show, Ticketmaster says you will be refunded. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
That happened because of me. You all realize this, right? I'm the curse there.
Because it was going to be your first time in the park.
I've never seen a concert at the ballpark. Can you believe that? I just haven't seen many ball games.
You know what? I don't think I have. I've seen ball games, but not a concert.
So there you go. Yep, I had tickets to this one. And,
Oh, well.
It's not happening.
He'll be back.
But Can you imagine, though, if this morning, Heather, you were someone that, like, maybe you're affected by the WestJet, maybe you have a flight that's canceled,
Oh, you know
and the
what? I
concert
have a
was
daughter who
canceled?
may have a flight canceled. Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
yeah, things being canceled.
Moments of a little bit of disappointment for some folks today, for sure. All right. Well, the forecast is going to be a mixed bag. There are things in it that might sound disappointing, especially if you're camping, but today looks beautiful, Abby.
It sure looks beautiful. 13 degrees in Winnipeg, clear out there. We're seeing the sun making its appearance. We're going to see mainly sunny skies with some clouds roll in later. The winds will start light, then become breezy by the noon period. And we're aiming for a high of 22. Now, tonight, we should anticipate that rain starting in the evening with possible thunderstorm, bringing 10 to 20 millimeters of rainfall. Then the winds will peak up, especially around the midnight period. And the temperature is going to be dropping down to 14. Heading west to Brandon right now, it is 11 degrees and also clear out there. It's going to be mostly cloudy later in the day, and with rain starting sometime in the afternoon, some thunderstorm also late in the afternoon. Winds will be light from the southeast this morning, and you'd get to a high of 21. Thompson is at 11, partly cloudy. Today expect a mix of sun and clouds, a slight chance of showers. Then there's going to be clearing later in the day. The highs will be around 20. Further north in Churchill, 5 degrees at the moment, mostly cloudy. Today expect cloudy skies with a slight chance of showers also in the forecast. You'd get to a high of 6. Dauphin is at 12, heading to a high of 22. Gimli 13, partly cloudy at the moment. Today for the Interlake region, we're expecting mainly sunny conditions. Then some clouds will roll in the afternoon. The winds will become breezy from the south later, and we'll see a high of 21. Some rain in the forecast also starting late, accompanied by thunderstorm. And then that is going to take you into the midnight period. Steinbach, 8 degrees, and finally Morris, 9 degrees.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
Corey Funk, we have a traffic update.
Yeah, I got a call from Barb. She says that actually now Highway 1 is open at Headingley there, going both ways. So it seems like they finished up a day early. And I double checked on Manitoba 511, and sure enough, it says that it is open. So it should
Thanks,
be,
Barb.
yeah, thanks, Barb. Should be much smoother sailing on Highway number 1 than it has been the past week or so. So that's some good traffic news to start your Thursday. But if you have some bad traffic news or some neutral traffic news even, you just want to tell me about, give me a call if you're walking, biking, driving. Would love to hear from you. That number to call, 204-788-3093.
Thanks, Corey Funk.
Thank you.
21 minutes to 7 o'clock. Crystal Ramlakan is here via Zoom with our business report. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So Shell is going ahead with a pair of carbon capture projects. What are the details on this?
Yes, so one will collect emissions from Shell's refinery and chemical facilities in Alberta, northeast of Edmonton. And this was first proposed back in 2021. And Shell will also build a carbon capture hub for other companies to store emissions. But the announcement comes amid uncertainty about the financial viability of carbon capture and storage technology, which traps carbon emissions at their source and funnels them deep underground. So the technology is expected to play a key role in Canada's climate plan, but other projects have been shelved or continue to fall short on operational targets, despite significant investment from government. Susanna Pierce is the president of Shell Canada, and she says the company has the experience and financial backing to make this a success.
By being able to apply carbon capture sequestration to the project, it enables us to continue to produce the energy that we know is needed today, but at a decarbonized way, while we continue to look at future transitions around the area to service future needs as we move forward in the energy transition.
Both projects are expected to begin at the end of 2028. However, critics have repeatedly cautioned that Canada's targets should not hinge on a technology that continues to face serious setbacks.
And let's keep talking about carbon, because you also have a story in Business News today about a new tax on livestock. What is this?
Yes, so Denmark has passed a tax on cows passing gas. So the Danish government has agreed to tax farmers with cattle. So starting in 2030, farmers with livestock will be taxed on carbon dioxide emitted from each animal. And the average annual charge per cow will be about $100. And emissions from pigs will also be taxed, but, cows create more. So livestock is forecast to account for almost half of Denmark's emissions by 2030, and the country is targeting 70% emissions reductions by then. And Denmark is a major dairy and pork exporter, and agriculture is the country's biggest source of emissions. Experts predict the tax could cut as much as 1.8 million metric tons of carbon dioxide. And this news comes after farmers across Europe protested against proposed regulations on agriculture emissions. And New Zealand recently halted its efforts to impose a tax on sheep and cows after farmers protested nationwide there.
And finally, why are some customers going to soon pay more for streaming?
Well, Paramount Plus is increasing its prices like we've seen many other streaming services do. So this is as the company looks to turn its business around. This comes after the company stopped discussions with Skydance on a proposed merger earlier this month. So the Paramount Plus with Showtime plan is going up by $1 to $12.99 a month, and the price of its Paramount Plus Essential option will increase by $2 to $7.99. This change is going to take effect on August 20th for new customers. Existing customers will see prices go up after September 20th, and existing customers who don't receive Showtime content won't pay extra for their plans. And the price of the limited Paramount Plus commercial option will also increase by $1 to $7.99 for current customers. So, of course, more media companies have increased their streaming prices as they look to make a profit on this cash-losing business. And Paramount executives have said publicly on multiple occasions they see a lot of opportunities to increase the price of streaming services.
How are the markets looking today?
In Europe, stocks are moving slightly lower as investors face global inflation worries. Germany, the UK, and France are all down. In Asia, markets are falling as the Japanese yen weakened to a near 38-year low. So Japan, Shanghai, and Hong Kong are all down. Oil is up 29 cents to 81.19 U.S. per barrel. Gold is up 16.05 to $2,314.28 U.S. per ounce. And the dollar is up 1/10 cent to 73.08 cents U.S.
Well, thank you, Krista Lee. As always, we'll talk to you again tomorrow morning on the Friday show.
Okay, talk later, Marcy.
With our business news from CBC, that's Krista Lee Ramlakan. Time right now is 6:44 a.m., mainly sunny in Winnipeg and 13 degrees. Well, we are about to welcome the first long weekend of summer, and with it, peak travel season will get underway. And whether your trip involves trains, planes, or a good old-fashioned automobile, eating well can be key to a successful journey. This morning, we have ideas for on-the-go travel snacks and meals. Julie Van Rosendaal has joined us. She's a food writer and cookbook author and a frequent contributor to CBC Radio.
Hello.
So let's get right into this, because an interview about snacks could sound boring, except for the fact that you make something called charcuterie. What is that?
Oh my gosh. Charcuterie is it's a phrase my friends coined, and it's essentially just snacks assembled on a board, like a cutting board or like a plate. I mean, really anything that you can put snacks on. I actually travel with one of those bendy plastic cutting boards in the back pocket of my the car seat with a knife, one of those little paring knives that comes in a sheath. And so, if you're leaving town and you're going through your fridge and cleaning it out, you can really cobble together all the random veggies, the cheese, the pepperoni, crackers, anything goes on a charcuterie board. But you can also stop along the way, right? And run into a grocery store and run into the deli and get olives and hummus or whatever, and assemble these snacking boards that you can eat in the car or pull over to the side of the road. And I just love it. Charcuterie.
It's such a smart idea. That's why I had to start with it. And also it helps you clear out the fridge, as you said, when you're leaving. That's part of the process of getting out of town. And is the house okay? What do we have, what's going to go bad? What do you freeze in water bottles for on the go? What ideas do you have about that?
Oh, well, I usually freeze water bottles just put in the cooler in the back to keep other drinks cool, to keep other food cool. But often I will just pull, containers of frozen chili and curries and things that I have in my freezer because they're big solid blocks of ice. Instead of using ice packs, I throw those in the cooler because I'm usually going to my parents' place on the coast or to someone's house, or we're going camping or something. So then you end up with a meal once you get there, but it also keeps things cold along the way.
In terms of no-goes, what kinds of things do you make poor travel snacks?
Oh, so like you said, cleaning out your fridge before you go, there's always things that are not going to last that you can't necessarily toss into the freezer. I love making cold sesame noodles or peanut noodles, which are so fast to make, and you can use, any pasta, any noodles. They're delicious at room temperature. Peanut sauce is amazing. Sesame noodles is really just, soy sauce, sesame oil, a little bit of sugar, ginger, garlic. I have tons of green onions all summer in my backyard, so I throw those in. And then, anything from cucumbers to broccoli to pea pods that you have in your fridge, I pack it all into deli containers or, yogurt containers that I can toss into recycling on the road, and then disposable chopsticks, packets of soy sauce. Also, it's just about anything that you have in your fridge, from, eggs to greens to leftover rice to, the last of the roast chicken from dinner the night before, can be wrapped up into a tortilla or a flatbread to make a portable wrap that you can just eat with one hand. In fact, flatbread in general is great for road trips because it doesn't crumble. And, it's sort of chewy. You can tear it up and sort of scoop up hummus. I'll often make hummus to take, or because it's not drippy. It's got some protein in it. And if I make a batch of naan, I'll just sort of wrap it in a piece of foil to take in the car. And then if you have an assortment of stuff from the fridge, you can kind of, just stick it in a piece of flatbread and eat it like a sandwich, and it's sort of more of a meal.
That answers the question to the no-go things, because you said it's not crumbly or it's not drippy.
Yeah.
Anything messy is a no-go, right?
Exactly. And if you're going somewhere you want to bring your insulated mug, like, in the car, I always use it for sippable soup. And that's another way that you can get rid of all the, produce and all the stuff before you go. Anything can be turned into soup. Throw it all in a pot, make soup, puree it, and then you can sip it in your insulated mug. But if it's hot out and you don't want soup, it also works really well for smoothies. If you want to do like a frozen smoothie with, berries and yogurt and, all the things that you put in a smoothie, especially if you're leaving in the morning, which is common, you sort of start off with a proper nutritional boost instead of coffee and donuts on the road.
You have a beautiful idea that came from, I think it's your sister-in-law, about something that will keep the kids and, looking forward to their snack.
Yeah, my sister always packed, and she's a teacher. Well, she's a principal now. She always packed a surprise bag that they would open every 100 kilometers.
That's so smart.
It's so smart. And so she has 3 kids, and they were just like paper lunch bags, and they would be like little toys, little snacks. Every 100 kilometers, they would get to open one. And, you don't have to go and buy all the little toys. If you look in the bottom of their toy boxes, it is full of little, like random little toys, little cars and things like that. It's the element of surprise that matters, like some stickers. It was such a good idea.
Wet wipes, energy balls, so many ideas that you have here. Just before you go this morning, what about ideas about stopping? Because is it just a rest stop and get out and eat, or you actually have ideas for experiences if you're stopping?
Yeah, it depends where you're driving through, but there are almost always farm stands in rural areas. I live in Calgary, so I'm always driving across BC, and if you can stop at a U-Pick farm, you can stretch your legs, your arms, leave with a bag of apples or plums.
You've stretched and you're feeding yourself.
Exactly.
All great ideas, lots packed into the conversation. Pardon the pun. Julie, thank you.
Thank you so much.
That is Julie Van Rosendaal, a food writer and cookbook author. It is 9 minutes now to 7 o'clock here on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is your CBC Morning Show. And up next, we are switching gears. We have a warning, in fact. We're going to be talking about excruciating pain, the kind that sounds like this.
2, 3, say out. Okay. Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. What we're listening to there are women getting an IUD or an intrauterine device. It is a common contraceptive procedure. It's supposed to be quick and easy, but it can be extremely painful for some people. So a few Planned Parenthood clinics in the U.S. are now offering routine sedation during the procedure. Some are questioning whether or not Canada should follow suit. Puneet Najur is with us, producer and host with CBC Social Team, and has covered this story for TikTok and YouTube. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
So why isn't sedation for IUDs offered to women in Canada right now routinely?
So after speaking to a few doctors, I've learned that it's really a mixed bag of a few reasons. But I think it's important for me to start with the fact that IUD procedures are generally simple to do, and it shouldn't be painful or excessively uncomfortable. And the doctors I spoke to, they're like about 95% of their patients do well without any sedation. But with that, sedation has its own dangers, and because of that, doctors really just use it if someone's in extreme pain or if their previous health history calls for it. And if a doctor does make the decision to use IV sedation for the procedure, there's a whole bunch of other things that would need to be done in order for that to safely happen.
What are some of the restrictions? What are you talking about there in offering sedation for IUDs?
Yeah, it's kind of like this huge checklist. So for sedation, it can't be done in all clinics or offices. It requires additional services and additional monitoring. And this can depend on where you live and what your doctor orders. And you can imagine that in smaller towns, this can be a bit more difficult to arrange. But generally, you'll be referred off to a gynecologist or even some of the abortion clinics that offer IV sedation. And this could probably land you in a surgical suite or even an operating room setting. And then once you're at this location, there's a whole ball of things that need to be done. So you'll need a crash cart. You'll have to have nurses who insert the IVs, someone to monitor the IV. You'll also need to have access to emergency services if the need arises. So you can see that there's a bunch of resources required to do this. And because clinics are already so strapped with resources, they'll try to do this procedure in a way that doesn't limit access to it, which basically just means using other pain relief options instead of going straight to sedation.
Now, in your video, you talk about how gender bias in healthcare plays a role in this. Can you share more about that?
Yeah, it's something I wasn't honestly too surprised to hear about. I feel like we've been hearing about gender bias in healthcare for a long time now. And all of the doctors I spoke to agreed that there's been a real tendency to minimize women's pain experiences in healthcare. And they see this not only with IUDs, but other procedures as well, like endometrial biopsies, outpatient procedures, and even labor. And they kind of give me this example about it's been happening for a long time. So they talk about when they were in school. And they're like, look, when we were trained for IUDs, we were trained in the way that, look, it's an easy procedure. The pain is just a pinch. And they've learned now over time with research and speaking to patients that that's not the case, that it's important to stop minimizing or ignoring women's pain experiences, but also giving them adequate pain relief options.
How do doctors want to fix this, those that you spoke with? What are some suggestions?
It's kind of like a set game plan that they're all on board about. So they want to see an individualized approach for every patient. No one's the same, right? We all don't handle pain in the same way as well. And something they've stressed more than anything is open communication on both ends. Patients should feel comfortable to ask, what pain relief options do you have for me? Can I take a break if I find this to be too much? Can I entirely stop and try something else if I don't like this? And doctors need to share every possibility of pain with their patients, because full appropriate consent means that they share that this procedure might be very painful for you. And the doctors told me that this hasn't always been happening. And then all of these other pain relief options before sedation. That could be oral medication like naproxen. That could be anti-anxiety medications. Cervical freezing is quite popular for some clinics. And of course, if it calls for it and the patient feels like that there's nothing else that works for them, IV sedation is an option as well.
We mentioned TikTok. How is social media pushing the conversation about women's negative experiences with IUD procedures?
Working for social, you really do see the pros and cons of social media. And this was one story for me where I realized that social can really help further conversations in healthcare. So if you were to go on TikTok right now and you just search IUD, you will see thousands of stories of women's horrible experiences with the procedure. And Dr. Renee Hall from Vancouver told me she's actually grateful to see these negative stories online because it really helps doctors like her make the case for better education and training for more pain relief options. And she brought something else up I never thought about. And she's like, look, when girls share their stories online about these really rough insertions or removals, she's like, it kind of breaks a stigma. If someone feels like, okay, maybe I'm just handling this not the best and it might not be for me. And she's like, no, that's not the case. It might be a very simple procedure and a lot of women do well, but for some, it is traumatic. And because of that, there should be more attention to provide pain relief options. And it doesn't have to be sedation, but if it comes to that, that should be an option as well.
Puneet, thank you for this.
Great. Thank you so much.
Puneet Najjar is a producer and host with CBC's Social Team. And Puneet's right that when it comes to gender biases in healthcare and stories that aren't covered or women's health issues that are minimized, that is something that has been happening for decades. So I just want to invite you, and I've said this before when we have our regular medical column, if you have an idea for a story we should be covering, and maybe you have an idea for a story that has to do with women's health, we would love for you to pitch it to us. Remember, we have Dr. Bardwaj with us each and every week. He is completely open to doing research, looking at studies, trying to understand issues. So if you have a thought for us on that, please give us a call or email the show. So you can call us anytime at the listener line, 788-3205 on the listener line, or you can always email the show as well, radio893@cbc.ca. It's 3 minutes now to 7 o'clock. Let's find out what's making news this Thursday morning. Hi, Heather.
Good morning. Well, a relative of a couple killed in the Carberry bus crash last June says she's conflicted about the decision not to charge the driver who crossed in front of an oncoming semi. 17 people were killed. The Crown and RCMP say the bus driver had blind spots that contributed to him not seeing the semi, and that played a role in the Crown's conclusion there were no grounds for a criminal charge. We'll hear from that relative coming up. And a reunion to help survivors of the Birtle Residential School heal. An organizer of today's gathering, Charlie Bittern, says meeting other former students is exciting and painful at the same time because they all have shared experiences. We're going to hear from him in our next local news at 7:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
In Winnipeg, 13, mainly sunny. We're heading for a high of 22, and then it's going to get wet tonight and into tomorrow, and a chance of a thunderstorm as well tonight. But for today, really quite lovely. On your morning commute, Headingley, now reopened Highway 1 through Headingley, so that's all finished a day early. They were doing rail line repairs. What is still closed is Louise Bridge. If you have any updates, 788-3093. In the next hour of the show, we're going to talk to two local performers who dealt with major health concerns. They thought their performing days were over, in fact, but years later, they're still at it. And they're relating to Celine Dion's struggles. That CBC documentary just came out this week about Celine Dion. So stay tuned. We're going to talk to these local performers in the next hour of the show. Also, we'll have more on the story Heather just mentioned about one of the survivors' relatives being disappointed about what she heard yesterday about the results of the investigation into the crash around Carberry. And to something completely different here, have you been noticing the grads all around town? Well, one of the places, if you want to go grad gawking is what I call it, you can go to the Ledge. Just gorgeous. Looking at everyone taking photos and dressed in their finest. That's exactly what a CBC videographer and Jim Agapito did this week. And we'll hear the results of that in the next hour as the grad pride continues. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio, and up next on CBC, it's World Report. Stay with us.
Today on The Current.
Like, it's the biggest decision of my life.
We'll make the decision. I'm sick of self-doubt.
Reality TV gets a lot of flack for being shallow and catty. The television journalist Emily Nussbaum says that in many ways it's changed media for the better, from bringing in more diversity to highlighting social issues. Coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Tonight, the first debate in the 2024 U.S. presidential election, and it will be a grudge match.
It's clear that when he lost in 2020, something literally snapped in the sky. Now, he's running again, and he's clearly unhinged.
Should I be tough and nasty and just say you're the worst president in history, or should I be nice and calm and let him speak?
Current President Joe Biden says he is fighting for the soul of America. Former President Donald Trump says he's fighting a system that's corrupt. What will it look like on stage? CBC's Katie Simpson will find out tonight as she watches it all unfold in Atlanta.
All around the CNN studio in northwest Atlanta, there's a heavy security presence. Roads are being closed, and signs promoting tonight's event are being hoisted up. It's the rematch many predicted and so many didn't want. President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump will debate for 90 minutes. There will be 2 commercial breaks and no studio audience. Georgia State University professor Daniel Franklin says these candidates both have a low bar to clear in order to deliver a strong performance.
And the narrative surrounding Biden is that he is too old. And the narrative surrounding Trump is that he's kind of crazy. I'm going to look for them to find ways to fight against that narrative.
Biden has spent the last week holding mock debates in private, resting and discussing strategies with advisors. Trump likes to rely on his instincts, and so his preparation has been less formal, bouncing ideas off the Republicans competing to be his vice presidential pick, spending just a day and a half running mock debates with his team. The election is still about 5 months away, and even if there is a big gaffe or standout moment, both candidates have plenty of time to recover and get back on track. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Atlanta, Georgia.
And you can watch the CNN presidential debate simulcast on CBC News Network or on CBC Gem starting at 9 p.m. Eastern, 9:30 in Newfoundland. Britons are heading to the polls in exactly 1 week's time, and many predictions have 14 years of Conservative rule coming to an end with an historic defeat. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's been trailing the Labour Party by a wide margin even before he called the snap election. Anna Cunningham has more from London.
Are you two really the best we've got to be the next Prime Minister of our great country?
A blistering question directed at Prime Minister Sunak and the man hoping to lead the country in a week's time, Sir Keir Starmer. Reflective, perhaps, of an exhausted British public who have witnessed 5 Prime Ministers in 6 years. Wednesday's head-to-head televised debate was the leader's last-ditch attempt to woo voters. And it was scrappy.
He's changed his mind on every major position that he's taken. He doesn't have the courage of his convictions.
If you listen to people in the audience across the country more often, you might not be quite so out of touch.
From personal attacks to clashes on tax, immigration, gender and Brexit. But the polls have barely moved, putting the centre-left Labour Party ahead by at least 20 points and the ruling right-wing Conservatives heading for a historic defeat. British politics over the past 14 years has been marked by economic turbulence, Brexit, political scandal and upheaval. And there is one scandal making headlines. They're calling it Gamblegate. Up to 15 political figures and officials, largely Conservative linked, have been accused of placing suspicious bets in the lead up to this election. Former aide to Labour Prime Minister Tony Blair, Alistair Campbell, believes such betting is a crime.
People in politics should not be allowed to bet on anything where they might have information.
The Gambling Commission and the police are now investigating. Whoever does form the next government in a week's time will have a hill to climb to restore trust in British politics. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
We're expecting the Trudeau government to announce today that it's expanding the federal dental program. It appears children under the age of 18 will now be eligible, along with people who receive a disability tax credit. In total, it could mean another 1.5 million people will be added to the eligibility list. The applicants must be uninsured with an annual household income of under $90,000. This comes as Alberta Premier Danielle Smith says her government is looking to opt out of the federal dental program. WestJet is cancelling dozens of flights ahead of a possible mechanics strike. The airline says the Aircraft Mechanics Fraternal Association has issued a strike notice, and they could stop work as early as Friday afternoon. The airline says more than 3,000 passengers are affected. The union called off plans to strike last week as talks continued with the airline. A CBC News investigation has found more than 2.5 million units of controlled prescription drugs went missing last year, and increasingly they're not being reported stolen in robberies, but rather lost without explanation. The CBC's Tara Carman has more.
Oh, okay, I see. You're saying that there's 5 in there when you opened it.
A pharmacy technician at North York General Hospital uses her fingerprint to open a drug dispensing cabinet. It counts how many pills she's taking out.
Now it's telling you that you're removing 1 and you're putting back the other 4.
This is how it's supposed to work. Potentially dangerous or addictive drugs locked away, every pill accounted for. But a CBC News investigation found that isn't always the case. Sometimes tens of thousands are reported lost in a single incident. The biggest? Nearly 250,000 tablets of the opioid painkiller Dilaudid, reported missing by an Ontario pharmacy in May of last year. They would be worth about $4 million on the street. Such losses are concerning, says Chris Auger, the OPP's top pharmaceutical opioids investigator.
Any amount of drugs that are lost that could possibly be diverted back into the systems that people might misuse, we're always concerned about those types of things. Definitely an avenue that we'd sort of want to follow up on.
Patricia Turbovich, an associate professor of health policy at the University of Toronto, says automating systems that reconcile what's in stock versus what's been dispensed, or putting up cameras in places where medications change hands could help reduce losses.
Unless we have the proper checks and balances in place and the proper signals to detect when a loss or a theft has occurred, then we're going to continue to see an increase in these losses.
As for those missing opioids, Health Canada has referred a pharmacist to the Ontario College. They are now investigating. Tara Carmen, CBC News, Vancouver.
An icon in Vancouver's 2S LGBTQ plus community is among the latest Order of Canada appointees. Janine Fuller is being honored for a fight that took place decades ago, but it also seems especially relevant today. Lindsay Duncombe explains.
I was shocked and happy and surprised.
Janine Fuller found out she would receive the Order of Canada a few weeks ago, recognition for a life of activism.
Getting this was a huge, major thing.
Fuller was the manager of Little Sisters Books in Vancouver's West End for 25 years. In 1990, Canada Customs stopped shipments to the store, calling them pornography. Fuller led the fight against the decision all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada. She spoke about the victory at a news conference in 2000.
We celebrate the fact that books will come into this country without the kind of inability and unscrutinized tyranny that has happened at the border through Canada Customs.
These days, Fuller sways as she speaks, her words halting sometimes, evidence of the toll Huntington's disease is taking on her body. All her family members have died from the genetic degenerative disorder. The Order of Canada announcement describes Fuller as a beacon of hope for others living with the condition.
Because we cannot take anything for granted.
Fuller says this honor is especially meaningful now with ongoing challenges to trans rights and increased scrutiny of books in schools. She plans on attending the Rideau Hall celebration in person. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Vancouver.
And finally,
be on my side, I'll be on your side, baby. There is no reason for you to hide.
some disappointing news for those of you hoping to catch Canadian icon Neil Young and his band Crazy Horse this summer. They've canceled the rest of their U.S.-Canada tour. They're blaming it on an outbreak of an unspecified illness. A message posted on Young's website says the band had to stop after a couple of members got sick following a performance in Detroit. If you already have bought your tickets, you may be eligible for a refund. Regardless, we at World Report don't want to let it bring you down. We'll leave you with more of Down by the River. Well, that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Yeah, that includes the show that was supposed to happen here July 17th in Winnipeg. Not going ahead. Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Beautiful day ahead for us here in the city. Lots of sunshine and a gorgeous forecast for the day. Abby's going to have those details in a moment. You're listening to CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube, where we're seeing a beautiful sky this morning. I'm Marcy Marcusa, as mentioned. And this hour on the program, we're going to talk about grad. Hopefully you had lovely weather for your grad. I know that when CBC's Jim Agapito and one of our videographers headed out to the legislature, they got some lovely images and stories around grad. That is one of the spots where a lot of the grads had to take photos. So we're going to take you there this hour. Also, Céline Dion spoke openly about her battle with stiff person syndrome in a recent CBC interview. The doc just came out this week. We're going to talk to two local performers who know what it's like to deal with mid-career setbacks because it's changes to their physical health. So stay tuned. That's coming up at 7:40. Right now with developing news, here's Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba's trucking sector is using temporary foreign workers at the highest rate in years. They're trying to find drivers, but some of the companies are accused of taking advantage of newcomers. The Manitoba Trucking Association says it has heard complaints about some companies making newcomers pay for their work permits. That is illegal. We'll hear what else is being said coming up in our next local news. Portage la Prairie has apologized to the Dakota Plains First Nation at a ceremony yesterday. It's for a decision more than a century ago that led to the community being expelled from land they owned in Portage la Prairie. That story. And this just out, Order of Canada announcements from the Governor General this morning. There are some Winnipeggers and Manitobans on the list, including Tina Jones, who of course is the co-founder of Jones and Company Wine Store and also has been chair of the Health Sciences Center Foundation, and Tina Keeper, an actor, award-winning actress, also on the list. So I'll be back with more on that coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
All right. Thanks very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
That's exciting news. There are 4 on the list in total. Heather's right. And so we'll have more coming up through the morning as we celebrate the Manitobans, the Winnipeggers, in some cases, who are on the list to receive the Order of Canada this year. All right. Let's get into what's happening with the weather forecast. Abby?
Hi there. Good morning once again. 14 in Winnipeg. It's clear we're enjoying some sunshine. Other parts of the south also hovering between 11 and 14 at the moment. In the city, it's going to be mainly sunny with increasing cloudiness this afternoon. We're expecting light winds becoming breezy later in the day, and the highs will reach 22. Normals for this period of the year is around 25 degrees. Tonight, the forecast says it's going to be cloudy with rain beginning this evening. Now, there's a risk of thunderstorm late in the evening and overnight, and we're looking at about 10 to 20 millimeters of rain. The winds will become breezy, especially near midnight, and then it's going to cool down to 14. And for tomorrow, that rain will continue, another 10 to 20 millimeters expected. But right now, let's talk about today. We're enjoying some sunshine outside. It's 14 in the city. Today will start sunny, then the clouds will roll in this afternoon, leading to rain and potential thunderstorm tonight.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
Corey Funk, what's up?
You know what? I've only have so far good traffic news. Got a call from Barb earlier. That closure for railway work on Highway 1 around Headingley is actually open now, going both ways. So if you do take number 1 part of your commute or you have plans for the weekend or anything like that, should be smooth sailing more or less, much smoother than it has been. So thanks for that call there, Barb. I did double check Manitoba 511 and sure enough, it says it's open. If you see anything else going on though on the highways, on the roads, on the bike lanes, sidewalks, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. I'll let folks know what you're seeing. 204-788-3093.
And now let's take you to the Ledge, where high school grads have been spending a lot of time this week from schools all over Manitoba, taking pictures of their decked out outfits in the front steps of the building. CBC's Jim Agapito asked Chris, who's a parent of one of the grads, how he feels watching.
And that's a hard one. She's our oldest, and so this is the first time we've been through this, and it's been it's wonderful. It's bittersweet though, because it's a stage that's done and it's going faster and faster, and you look back and try to remember all the little moments and times. It just goes so fast though. It's a beautiful culmination, but it's hard.
That was CBC's Jim Agapito talking to one proud parent outside the Manitoba legislature, and it poses the question, why is everyone choosing that as the backdrop for their grad photos? Why has it become the place to be? So as we're having the discussion, I also want to remind you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Information Radio on YouTube, our CBC Manitoba YouTube channel, Information Radio streaming live. And we're going to see some of those photos, or you'll be able to see some of those photos, rather, as you're hearing them described here on the radio. And the grads just look beautiful. So Jim was there, as mentioned, and he spoke with a graduating class from Westgate Mennonite Collegiate on the steps of the ledge. And he asked them why they were there.
My name is Leah Gray.
Why come here to take your grad photos?
Well, this is just such a beautiful landscape and a beautiful fountain. It's the happening spot.
Erica Sutherland. I think it's just like tradition, honestly. Every year, Westgate's graduating class at least comes here and gets some group photos done, so it's really nice to just carry on that Westgate tradition.
Mia Dash. I think it's just a really beautiful historic building. The grounds are really beautiful. Lots of flowers and the fountain. It's just a really pretty place to take pictures.
Amy John. I think most other high school also come here for pictures, so yeah.
I am Allie Baydock.
Can you describe for our audience what you're wearing right now?
All right, I am wearing a emerald green three-piece suit with a black undershirt.
Are you hot right now?
I am so hot right now.
Yeah, I'm in a very classy fit. I have pearls, a black silk dress, a headband, some curls. I look great.
I'm wearing a blue fitted gown with some sparkles and a corsage and a diamond necklace.
I am wearing a navy blue dress. It's got some sparkles, some lace.
Oh, it's light blue dress and it's really puffy. On the bottom there's 3 layers and there's flower on the dresses everywhere and there's very glittery sparkling.
How do you make a decision to pick the dress you get?
I tried on many dresses, and then the one I tried on really fit me, so I just got it.
And I understand convocation is like at 4 p.m., correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, what's going through your mind?
I am a little bit freaked out, but I've done the rehearsal, and I think I'm ready to go. I'm ready. It's a bit sad to be leaving high school, but I do think I'm ready to take those next steps into the larger world and really focus on specialized education. And so, while it is bittersweet, I think I'm ready for it to happen.
It's very not real, I feel like, because time flew by very fast. But I'm also very happy for today, the day for graduation.
It's bittersweet, really. I'm ready to move on to the next stage, but I'm also sad to be leaving my friends. But it's been a really good years.
There's a lot of endings, so I'm kind of sad, but there's lots to look forward to, so it's a good goodbye.
Okay, you said look forward to. What are the things you're looking forward to?
I'm going to the University of Winnipeg in the fall, so I'm excited to be there. Yeah.
Okay, what you going to take?
Neuroscience.
Okay, why was that a decision to take?
I want to go into medicine, so that's kind of the road I'm taking. That's I really like sciences.
It's such a busy time. It's hard to process even what's going on, just so much to do, especially going away in the fall. But it's definitely an exciting time and new beginnings. So yeah, I'm definitely happy about it. I'm going to Dalhousie and I'm taking engineering.
Wow, that's a big move.
Yeah, it's a pretty far move, but I'm excited.
I'm going to be taking forensic sciences.
Ooh, where are you doing that
at? Trent University. I'm going all the way to Ontario.
I'm going to university and keep going with my study. Yeah.
Are you nervous about it at all?
A little bit, because it's starting a new chapter of my life. So yeah, a little bit, just a little bit.
If you can go back and look at this moment, what would you say to yourself?
Leave no regret and then keep going.
Just soak up every minute of it. It goes so fast.
You're smarter than you think.
Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around every once in a while, you might just miss it.
Don't be afraid to be a little bit silly. Have some fun. Just, you only have this moment once. Just live it to its fullest.
Good advice. Jim Agapito speaking to the grads and some parents, but the graduating class that he caught outside the ledge taking photos was from Westgate Mennonite Collegiate, all dressed up and ready to graduate.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
I'm really concerned.
And I'm not really happy about that.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take. I'm Janet Stewart. From 12:30 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
It just brings everyone together.
Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you, weekdays on CBC.
It's 12 degrees in Winnipeg right now, lots of sunshine, and we'll have that with us for the day before some rain moves in tonight and tomorrow. Well, if you're looking for something to do on Canada Day, the Forks has a lot of things going on. As I mentioned earlier in the show, they've partnered with Two Spirit Manitoba this year, but also with Tungasukit Inuit Resource Centre to offer a whole bunch of different cultural performances. So the list is long and varied, and you can check it all out. Lots of things happening on Monday. One of the artists that will be on stage at the Forks for Canada Day is Kelly Bado. Here she is with Mama Hey.
Mama, 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 hey. Mama, 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 hey. Elle était belle et souveraine, berceau de toute l'humanité. La brume caressait ses ailes comme un élan de liberté. Sa couronne, elle a échangé pour des morceaux de verre brisés. Tout au royaume dispersé, comment retrouver la paix? Encore, dites-moi que je n'ai pas tort de rêver. Encore, dites-moi que le meilleur est à venir. Elle a cru en toutes les promesses, vaines et pleines d'avidité. Les façons de faire des hommes d'hier seront bientôt dépassées. Il n'est pas interdit d'espérer. Sur cette terre, rien n'est éternel. Là où finira par tourner pour qu'elle retrouve sa lumière. Encore, dites-moi que je n'ai pas tort de rêver. Encore, dites-moi que le meilleur est à venir. Mama, 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 hey. Mama, mama, Mama Africa, c'est en nous que sommeille ta fierté. Mama Africa, c'est en nous que sommeille ta liberté. Encore. Dites-moi que je n'ai pas tort de rêver. Encore. Dites-moi que le meilleur est à venir. Encore. Dites-moi que je n'ai pas tort de rêver.
Her voice is so pretty and it's so light. And having had opportunity to watch her sing live before, it's just effortless. So she really, what a talent. You can see Kelly Bado live as part of the Canada Day celebrations at the Forks. Her schedule, because there's all kinds of different performances, is at 8:30. She's going to be playing on the patio by the Forks Market, of course, on Monday, Canada Day. But also there's performances by other Manitoba artists like Matt Mack and Ben Tamana that you can check out. Big list of events and performances at the Forks this weekend and for Canada Day. Well, it is time right now at 7:25 a.m. on CBC to check in what's going on in morning sports. And once again, in for Scott Regehr this morning is Khalil Hassanali. Good morning, Khalil.
Good morning, Marcy.
So how are the Bombers coaches trying to keep the team's spirits high amid this start to the season, especially when you've been a team that's been on top so much? You know, This is a very different season now.
Big change, yeah. An 0-3 start. Might have some fans as well as players panicking. The names on the injured list, that's unfortunately quite lengthy. But head coach Mike O'Shea says the process is currently rock solid.
Putting too much emphasis on an outcome rather than a standard of preparation, it's fool's game. Certainly you want to be as steady as you can through a season, which is full of emotional ups and downs. Through a prep week, I don't think we've ever tied anything to an outcome, more just making sure they uphold the standard of the process. Everybody does.
Bombers QB Zach Collaros looking to shift his production so far this season, where he has struggled offensively, just like the team. Through 3 losses, Collaros has yet to throw for a touchdown pass. Winnipeg led the league in scoring last year. Now they're averaging the lowest in the league. Now heading over quickly to the NHL, the league's award ceremony is being held tonight, so we're keeping an eye on Jets netminder Connor Hellebuck, who's been nominated for the Vezina.
A couple of familiar names have secured themselves now a spot on Canada's track and field team headed for Paris and the Olympics. Who are they?
Ethan Katzberg and Cameron Rogers won the hammer throw on day 1 of the Olympic trials in Montreal. Both are reigning world champions in their respective disciplines, but they still needed to come out on top in order to be selected to the Paris team. The hammer throw, it was the only event on the schedule yesterday, and Katzberg says that brought out a unique feeling to the competition.
I think the crowd really got into the throwing, and that definitely helped get me fired up for the competition. And we don't often get like a crowd so close to the hammering, and getting really involved. And I think that really just just made it very, very exciting. I think I put a good card out, and it was just an enjoyable competition.
Both Katzberg and Rogers are looking to build upon yesterday's performance when they go to Paris in a couple of weeks' time. Today, it's the distance events on the schedule. Mo Ahmed is taking part in the 5,000 meter. He won silver in that race at the Olympics last in Tokyo.
And there was a big upset at the Euros as the group stage was wrapping up, hey?
Portugal shut out 2-0 to Georgia. That's the sound of Georgian fans outside the stadium in Germany celebrating the win in their first ever appearance at a major tournament. Georgia's coach, Willie Sagnol, says their path through the competition was crystal clear.
When you're the small team of the competition, you have nothing to lose. You have no weight on your shoulder. It's difficult, when you're France, when you're England, when you're Portugal, you're under pressure because people expect you to win. For us, we don't have all these things. The only responsibility we had at the beginning of the competition was to make the Georgian nation proud of their players. And I think we've done it the best way.
Georgia is now through to the quarterfinals. A tough matchup, though, for them next. They are facing the undefeated team from Spain.
All right, Khalil, thank you.
No problem. Thank you so much.
That's Khalil Hassanali filling in for Scott Regehr, who's been busy working on some Olympic reports for us. Of course, the games now just going to be coming up fast now. We'll see what happens in Paris. Lots of concerns about the heat, for example, this year. There's also some interesting new sports coming up. I haven't read a lot about it, but I'm extremely intrigued, being a child of the 80s. How breakdancing is going to make its appearance at these Olympic Games and how they're going to score that and judge that and what does that look like. I just think it's super interesting. So that's one of the things I'll be watching for. In traffic, you've been watching what's going on, and we got a call this morning saying that through Headingley, things have improved because a day early, it seems, you're free moving through Highway number 1 at Headingley. So there had been some repairs to a rail crossing there, and there had been some issue with closure this week, but it's all open now. Louise Bridge remains closed. Otherwise, everything's looking good on your drive, walk, or roll. But call us if you need to. 788-3093 is the number to reach the morning show. And coming up in the next half hour of the morning show, Celine Dion spoke this week in the documentary openly about her battle with stiff person syndrome. Also was part of a recent CBC interview. We're going to talk with two local performers who say they know what it's like to deal with mid-career setbacks because of changes to their physical health. But they also know what it's like to keep on going. One of them suffered a stroke. The other was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. So we're going to have that conversation after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it's 14 degrees, a day that starts with sunshine and ends with rain. But in the middle, it's going to be beautiful. A high today of 22. Winnipeg police hope to have more information today on that catastrophic explosion that blew a house off its foundation yesterday and seriously damaged several others in Transcona. It happened on Camrose Bay. One man who lives next door says it was like an earthquake that blew him off his feet. Police have been searching for the people who lived in the home. None of the neighbors were hurt. Police are still on the scene this morning, protecting the area now because the homes nearby are not safe. Manitoba's trucking sector is using temporary foreign workers at the highest rate in years. They're trying to find drivers. But some of the companies are accused of taking advantage of the newcomers. The Manitoba Trucking Association has heard the complaints. Some companies are making newcomers pay for their work permit. That is illegal. Aaron Dolinek is the association's executive director. He says the bad actors are giving everyone else in the industry a bad name.
It hurts our reputation, absolutely. There's a lot of great employers out there that have fantastic processes, settlement programs for people that are coming into work here, just support systems in place, training.
The province has set up a working group to examine complaints about the industry. There are also allegations the workers aren't being paid properly and don't have benefits or protections. The niece of two victims of last June's horrific Carberry bus crash feels conflicted the driver won't be charged. RCMP and the Crown announced yesterday the 61-year-old man was at fault, but they can't prove it was the result of anything criminal. They also say the bus had 3 blind spots which played a role in the crash. Chantal Urich's uncle and aunt, Frank and Rose Perzello, were among the 17 people who died that day. Urich understands why no charges were laid, but still has questions.
If there was something that was blocking, their view when they was driving, it's still up to the person that's driving the motor vehicle to make sure that you can see.
Investigators say the driver wasn't impaired or texting at the time of the crash, and police say there were no mechanical problems with the bus. A historic apology for Dakota people in Manitoba. Portage la Prairie apologized to the Dakota Plains First Nation at a ceremony yesterday. It's for a decision more than a century ago that led to the community being expelled from land they owned in the city of Portage la Prairie. Chief Donald Smoke says an apology is long overdue.
I strongly believe that we were put here to sort of die off, and to be dependent to the point where we're no longer a people. I think about my father and my uncle, the past hereditary chiefs here in Dakota Plains. It's something that they've been wanting for years to happen, is that acknowledgement.
Both communities say the apology is the first step towards reconciliation and a better future together. Dozens of residential school survivors are making their way to Birtle today in western Manitoba. They're meeting in a reunion for survivors of Birtle Residential School. One of the organizers, Charlie Bittern, says it's important to come together because their relationships help them survive.
It's going to be very exciting to meet the former students. Of course, we're all elders now, but the other part is I think it's going to be the painful thing when we go and go to the site where the residential school is.
Bittern says he wants to make the reunion an annual pilgrimage because it would help students feel connected and help boost the economy of Birtle. Well, as a strike looms at WestJet tomorrow, the airline is moving to contain any chaos by canceling some flights. WestJet announced last night it has canceled 25 flights today and tomorrow to make sure it won't leave any passengers or crew stranded. The flight cancellations just ahead of the Canada Day long weekend affect about 3,300 customers. You can hear the latest on that story as well as other national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. 4 Manitobans are being awarded the Order of Canada. Heading into Canada Day, Governor-General Mary Simon has announced 83 new appointments to the Order of Canada. Among the 4 Manitobans is Tina Jones, co-owner of Jones & Company Wine Merchants and chair of the Health Sciences Centre Foundation. She is being recognized as a community builder.
I never thought in my wildest dreams that I would ever be appointed to the Order of Canada, but it's something that really belongs to the many people that I work with at the Health Science Centre Foundation, firstly, and of course in the businesses that I'm involved in. And it's a great honor.
And you can hear more from Tina Jones coming up in the next hour of Information Radio. The other 4 Manitobans, the other 3 remaining, are Estelle Simons, who work to mitigate effects of allergic reactions and diseases, especially among children. Tina Keeper, an award-winning actress and producer who is one of the first Cree members of Parliament. And William Kirby of the Centre for Contemporary and Canadian Art, being recognized for promoting Canadian art and artists. And if you had a ticket to this...
the place where all the children can live.
Neil Young and Crazy Horse's Love Earth Tour has been forced to delay the rest of its stops. It was going to play Winnipeg July 17th, and in a post, Neil Young's group says some of the band became sick after their Detroit stop. If you had tickets to that show, Ticketmaster says you will be refunded. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thanks, Heather Wells.
You're welcome.
Remember, for more news anytime, as Heather mentioned, on our website. And she'll be back with next headlines before 8 o'clock. Always try to stay close to the news center through the morning show. Let's get into our regional forecast. Abby is here with a mixed bag of details.
Yeah, mixed bag of details, I'll tell you. We're enjoying that sunshine outside at the moment. 14 degrees in the city. Mainly sunny conditions with increasing cloudiness by the afternoon period. We're going to be reaching a high of 22 today. With the winds coming, it's going to make some transition to light and breezy conditions later. Heading to Brandon, 12 degrees at the moment. Mostly cloudy. Expect more clouds to roll in with rain starting sometime this afternoon and a chance of thunderstorms later. The winds will be light from the southeast, and then you'll be reaching a high of 21. We're looking at about 10 to 20 millimeters of rainfall for that region. Moving north to Thompson, 11 degrees at the moment and partly cloudy. For today, expect a mix of sun and clouds with a slight chance of showers. The sky will clear this afternoon and we'll see a high around 20 degrees. Further north in Churchill, it is 5 degrees and mostly cloudy. Today starts cloudy, and then we'll see a chance of showers sometime this morning, and then that would clear by the afternoon period, and the winds will be light from the north, high around 6. Dauphin is currently sitting at 13 degrees and cloudy. Today we're expecting some clouds to roll in, a chance of showers late in the afternoon. The winds will become breezy from the southeast around the noon period, and we will get to a high of 22 for tonight. Periods of rain are likely, totaling 10 to 15 millimeters. Gimli sitting at 14 and partly cloudy for the Interlake region today. Expect mainly sunny skies this morning with some clouds rolling in during your lunch break. The winds will become breezy from the south, reaching a high of 21. And for tonight, some more clouds, and then the rain is going to be starting late in the evening, accompanied by thunderstorms, and winds will be light, gusting from the east near midnight. Steinbach and Morris both sitting around 12 degrees. The day starting sunny, but the clouds will come in through the afternoon period. Light and breezy conditions from the southeast. The highs would sit at 22, but right now in Winnipeg, it is 14. Sunshine to start and increasing clouds. Afternoon period will get to a high of 22, leading to rain and potential thunderstorms tonight.
All right, thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
Corey Funk has popped in with a look at our commute today.
Yes, northbound St. Mary's at Lyndale. There's a stalled vehicle blocking that curb lane, so keep left
to get around that. And also for folks who take Highway 1 for the past week or so, I know there's been a block at Headingley forcing you to take a detour as well. If you're going east, you'd have to detour at 13 down to number 2, but that is now clear. We had a call from Barb earlier, and sure enough, on Manitoba 501 says that is that railway construction repairs are all done, and you should be able to just drive down the highway number 1. So if you see anything else though going on, if you're walking, biking, driving, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. I'll let folks know what you're seeing out there. That number 204-788-3093.
It's funny, Corey, because you come in and if people are watching the show on YouTube, you start to do traffic, and then often people see me look away and wave at my imaginary friends on the other side of the studio. But what I'm actually doing is waving at guests who are joining us via Zoom.
Yeah. No, actually, no. You're just waving at just for fun.
That only happens on Tuesday mornings. Come on. Speaking of which, we do have some guests that are about to talk to us about Céline Dion. What started as losing her voice turned into a full-blown medical investigation into her diagnosis with stiff person syndrome. Céline Dion recently openly spoke with CBC's Adrienne Arsenault about her health journey, and her documentary about her health journey was just released this week. Here's some of that conversation, though.
I can tell you that, of course, you don't choose what you want in life. When life strikes you, it imposes things on you, you still have a choice. What am I going to say? Look at myself in the mirror and talk to myself and say, what have I done? Why me? Why me? If I ask myself this question today, why is happening to me? What have I done? Have been a good girl, disciplined. I think I've been a good sister, mother, wife, friend. Is it going to help? What's happening to me that I cannot go on stage and do to my own expectation?
So that's a part of Céline Dion's conversation with Adrienne Arsenault, and the documentary about her health journey came out this week. But her story is familiar for many artists all across the country. My next two guests understand it. Mitch Crone is a local theatre performer and a director who had a stroke 7 years ago and now uses a wheelchair. But as you'll hear, it hasn't stopped him from doing the work he loves. Good morning. Mitch is with us via Zoom, and we're just going to get him off mute there so we can hear you, Mitch. No worries. Debbie Patterson joins us on the phone this morning.
Morning.
Hi, Mitch. There you are. I knew you'd be with us. Thank you for making time for us. Appreciate it.
No problem.
And Debbie Patterson is also with us this morning for this conversation. Debbie's the founder of Sick and Twisted Theatre. She was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis back in 1999 and now uses a wheelchair. And so, as I alluded to, both had performing careers before their health concerns had them pivot. Hi, Debbie.
Hi there.
So, Debbie, you heard Céline Dion, what she was talking about and how her attitude has been and her thinking about being a performer who, is struck with a health challenge like this.
Yeah.
How does that resonate with you in your own life?
Yeah, I mean, I hear what she's saying and I feel it. You know, I know when I was first diagnosed with MS, I kind of worried that I would have to stop performing. And in fact, I did stop performing for a while. And started thinking about how can I continue to practice theater while remaining comfortably seated. You know, so I developed as a director and writer because of that. When you're faced with a sort of a non-negotiable diagnosis like that, you kind of have to decide if you're going to, how hard you're going to fight and how hard you're going to accept. And whether the fighting is going to be about stopping everything and just focusing on the disease and getting better or overcoming, or if you're going to accept what the disease is bringing you and adapt and pivot and change your practice.
I want to ask you, Mitch, because you also kept performing, but how did hearing Céline Dion, what she had to say, resonate? And how long did you wait after your stroke to decide that you would, continue down your performance path?
I mean, I was quite impacted. Quite impacted by Dion's story, and even just and hearing, just the struggles that she's had resonates very strongly with myself as well. I started actually. as soon as I was able to, I guess, as soon as I was conscious in the hospital after my stroke, I was already working on a fringe play as a producer. So I didn't really slow down, but like what Debbie said, it really started had to focus from being on the acting on the stage to more stuff producing, directing, and that sort of thing, and writing as well. So yeah, it wasn't too. It was a hard transition, but not a too slow of a transition.
Speaking of which, in some of the work that you do, can you tell us what I'm seeing behind you? Because on Zoom, you've got this background and it says, I can make out most of it, but your head's in the way of some of it. So it says, I think it says Captain Ted, Disabled Pirate by you. So is this a show you've been working on?
Yeah, it's a show. It actually, the idea started in the pandemic. I ran it by my co-founder, Diana from the Strokes of Genius, our stroke comedy sketch duo. She also survived a stroke 2 weeks before I did, and so I wrote this play with the idea of like, where's the weirdest place you could find a wheelchair, and pirate ship was the first thing that came to mind. So I wrote this play, and thanks to actually Debbie and Sick and Twisted, built up a network of disabled actors and have so now we're this crew of this crazy pirate ship, being disabled on the seven seas and doing the regular pirate activity. So it's kind of a zany romp through.
I love that.
Make believe, I guess. I don't know.
I love that. I'm enjoying your poster as well. By the
So
way, I'm
yeah,
looking at the
it's
ship. Yeah.
we've been working. Oh yeah, yeah. Just actually, Diana just kept pushing. She's like, "Yeah, you should make a pirate parking parking pass.
Yeah, I see that hanging off the bow.
Had to include that on the ship."
Yeah, I see it hanging off there. And I apologize. There's just a slight delay on the Zoom this morning, so if I'm talking over you, I'm sorry about that, Mitch. Debbie, I wanted to ask you. I believe you just said that.
Oh no.
I believe you just said, Debbie, there was a moment where you did consider not going back. What is important in terms of support for people, and what did you find in terms of within the community, the support that help make your continued work in theater possible?
Oh, that's a really good question. I guess there were other artists who asked me questions that changed my thinking. So I thought I had to stop performing because I didn't have a body that would do the things I wanted it to do. And that was when I was still walking. I was just limping. But other artists would ask me questions about MS and how it affects my body, how it affects my worldview, really, and how it's changed who I am. And those questions were really interesting, and I thought they were compelling enough to explore artistically. Iris Turcotte was a dramaturg I worked with on Sergeant and Victor and Me, and she challenged me to explore I was sort of exploring the area around Sargent Avenue and Victor Street as an area that has transformed, not necessarily for the better, over the last 50 years or so. And she challenged me to explore MS as a metaphor for what was happening in that neighborhood. And I hadn't, I thought no one wants to hear the play about me and my disease, but in fact, people did want to hear that. And I realized that there's not enough representation of disabled people on stage. In fact, often theater is a world that erases disability altogether. So it seems to me really important for artists with disabilities to be on stage to represent, because there are people in the audience with disabilities who need to see themselves represented, and there are people in the audience who will one day develop disabilities who will need to know how to deal with it. And currently, we have no models for helping us explore that.
I can see Mitch kind of nodding along and reacting to what you're saying. I wonder, Mitch, what advice you might give to a performer who might be dealing with a disability for the first time And maybe they're in a moment where they're thinking, well, I guess my career in terms of performing is done, or in terms of doing this type of work is done.
I think my biggest thing would just say, don't give up, and try, and give yourself the grace to learn your new limitations and to learn your new expressions. And that's actually part of the thing that I say in my play, is that, where people might see disability, I see ability. And that's the whole thing. It's like somebody who might be lacking in one area might have something else that they can bring to the table. And especially in theater, they will have a different way of expressing something, or a different way of experiencing something that a playwright or a director or other actors won't have considered. So, bring something new to the table for somebody new to consider.
And just last, Debbie,
and I'm nodding with what Debbie is saying.
I just want to ask a last question of you,
Oh,
Debbie.
yeah, no, go ahead.
Physically, I wonder, I'm talking about the physical spaces in theater. What are we lacking in Winnipeg in terms of accessibility there?
Oh, well, there are a number of theaters that are very accessible, which is fantastic. But some of the older ones are not so accessible. And so that's an issue that needs to be resolved. I was just at the Dora Awards in Toronto, and the Winter Garden Theatre is not accessible at all from the audience or from backstage. There's stairs every which way you go. So, I don't think there are any stages in Winnipeg that are like that. So I think we're doing okay.
Thank you both for sharing your personal stories, but also the stories of the projects you're working on and how you both successfully pivoted and what that was like for you. Really appreciate it. Thanks so much, Mitch. Good luck with your upcoming projects.
Thanks a lot.
And thank you, Debbie, very much for being with us as well.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Mitch Crone with us via Zoom this morning, local theatre performer and director who has had a stroke 7 years ago and is now continuing to work, as you heard. Debbie Patterson, founder of Sick and Twisted Theatre today. Debbie was diagnosed with MS back in 1999.
Sound. The sound of silence.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Stereo or mono. The sound of resistance and cultural change. Listen to the innovative ways marketers are using sound around the world. Air quality, rule-breaking radio advertising on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on the CBC Listen app.
It's 8 minutes to 8 o'clock. It's 12 degrees in Winnipeg and it's sunny. Our high today, 22. Beautiful day. And then tonight, wet, wet, wet. Tonight into tomorrow, 10 to 20 millimeters tonight and 10 to 20 millimeters of rain expected tomorrow. And it's going to be windy. So a little bit of challenging weather coming our way. Well, coming up on the program after 8 o'clock, we are going to meet one of the people that was just this morning announced as a recipient of the Order of Canada. So stay tuned. We'll hear more about that. In addition, as you've been hearing in the news, a special reunion is happening today with residential school students. They will gather in Birtle, Manitoba. We're going to hear from one of them coming up after 8. Right now, though, speaking of news, no charges will be laid in connection with the deadliest bus crash in Manitoba's history. The collision was last year in June near Carberry. It killed 17 people, most of them seniors from Dauphin. Now, at a press conference yesterday, RCMP announced the decision not to lay charges. Chantal Urick is the niece of two of the victims who died in the crash. CBC's Josh Crabb reached her yesterday via phone. She lives in Calgary. This was after the details of the announcement came out. And he began by asking what they were doing the day that what her aunt and uncle were doing the day they boarded the bus.
Well, after COVID, I think everybody was inside their houses and didn't go out very much, and they were really looking forward to that day. They belonged to the Seniors Club, and I think that was one of their first outings after COVID. My aunt and uncle were very active. My aunt played bingo, my uncle did fishing and hunting, and he played crib and cards, and and he was very active, lots of friends.
I know you were monitoring the update today on the investigation. What was your reaction to the explanation that was given by the Crown not to authorize charges?
Well, I can understand, where they came up with that. At the same time, like I was saying, there is no winners, and there's in this at all. There's only losers. And what I mean by that is that no matter what the Crown came up with, there wasn't going to be a good result. I know that it was very hard for the Crown to come to that. At the same time, I think that, if it was you or I that was in the same situation and we proceeded into an intersection and we got into a car accident, I believe that there would be charges. If there was something that was blocking, their view when they was driving, it's still up to the person that's driving the motor vehicle to make sure that you can see whether there's I'm very conflicted about it, because I understand that, the driver, he is incapable of making decisions and he needs assisted care and he's got brain damage. But at the same time, there were 17 people that were killed. I think that the RCMP, again, no matter what they did, somebody is going to say something and is not going to feel that whatever that they did was right. If they did proceed, would it be highway transportation? Would there be more lawsuits against them? Would Manitoba Public Insurance step up? Are they going to fix the intersection? As soon as they start pointing fingers and saying who was at fault, then they open up a whole can of worms. It's hard. This whole last year has been hard. Not only did I lose them, and they were taken so tragically. A month later, my dad suffered a massive stroke because of all of the stress that happened with this car accident. So for me, it is conflicted, because if they weren't killed, then maybe my dad would still be alive. So there's a whole bunch of emotion that is there.
Chantal Urick is the niece of two of the victims who died in the crash. For more on the story, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba and hear more about the decision to not lay charges in connection with what was the deadliest bus crash in Manitoba's history. Also, information there about the driver who also sustained life-changing injuries and cannot care for himself, head injuries. And so RCMP weren't also able to get a full picture from him of what happened that day. But you can read more about this at cbc.ca/Manitoba. It is exactly right now 3 minutes to 8 a.m. and Heather Wells is in with other news.
Good morning. Well, Winnipeg police are still at the scene of a house explosion in Transcona. It happened yesterday on Camrose Bay. Still no word what caused that devastating blast. The home where the explosion happened is nothing but rubble. Nearby homes were also seriously damaged. The city says it's not sure if anyone was in the house when it was destroyed. We're going to hear more from police later today. A reunion to help survivors of the brutal residential school heal. An organizer of today's gathering, Charlie Bittern, says meeting other former students is both exciting and painful because they all have shared experiences of being taken from their families and forced to attend residential school. We'll have more on those stories and other news from Manitoba coming up at 8:30.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
After 8, we're going to hear much more from Charlie Bittern. One of his stories that is behind a punishment he received while he was attending Birtle Residential School was the subject of a CBC documentary. He was forced to run during a blizzard in 1967 in front of the then principal of Birtle's car as a punishment. 80 kilometers is what he ran that night. We're going to hear more about that, and we're also going to hear more from Charlie, so stay tuned for that. In addition, after 8 o'clock, as Heather's been mentioning in the news this morning, we are hearing the recipients' names for the Order of Canada. And there are 4 Manitobans on the list. One of them is Tina Jones. We're going to talk to her about the honor coming up after 8 o'clock. Right now it is 12 degrees. A high of 22 is what we're expecting in the sunshine before the rain comes tonight. And the morning commute has been pretty good so far. Call us if you see any major issues, 788-3093. Stay tuned. World Report's next on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube.
Today on Q.
I'm Talia Schlanger, sitting in for Tom Power. Karan Aujla was already a global superstar with massive chart-topping hits before winning his first Juno Award. He'll tell Tom about why Canada is a hub for Punjabi hip-hop.
Q. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
Reality TV gets a lot of flack for being shallow and catty, but television journalist Emily Nussbaum says that in many ways it's changed media for the better, from bringing in more diversity to highlighting social issues. Coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Tonight in Atlanta, former U.S. President Donald Trump, current President Joe Biden, and a debate that could help one of them return to the White House. Our Washington correspondent Richard Madden will be watching closely. Richard, just how high are the stakes tonight?
Yeah, they're huge. I mean, two leaders presenting starkly different visions of the country, and there are a lot of firsts. The first presidential debate of this election cycle, the earliest debate in U.S. history, and it's the first time a former president is debating the current one. Two of the oldest presidential candidates to square off in a rematch. Now, President Joe Biden is widely expected to focus on issues like protecting democracy, reminding voters of the January 6 riots. He'll also defend women's reproductive rights and the importance to support key allies like Ukraine and NATO. Now, former President Donald Trump is expected to focus on economic anxieties, immigration, and crime. But he's also the first presidential candidate who's a convicted felon. But there's more to this debate beyond policy. Take a listen to political analyst Ron Brownstein, who says temperament and mental acuity will be closely watched.
In this case, we have one candidate, Donald Trump, where people are going to be looking a lot about questions of character, and one in President Biden that people are going to be looking a lot about questions of competence and capacity.
Now, both Biden and Trump are raising expectations on each other, and the debate itself is taking place in the key swing state of Georgia, which could determine who wins the White House in November.
And so, Richard, the debate format has changed. How will this be different from the traditional debates that we're used to watching?
So remember the last debate, the last time these two faced off in 2020? It was a mess. Trump interrupted Biden more than 145 times, and it went off the rails. But the rules have since changed. There'll be no studio audience, just the moderators and the candidates. Microphones will be muted when the other candidate is speaking, but we'll still see the split screen for reaction during tonight's 90-minute debate.
The CBC's Richard Madden in Washington. Thanks, Richard.
Thanks.
And you can watch the CNN presidential debate simulcast on CBC News Network or on CBC Gem starting at 9 p.m. Eastern, 9:30 in Newfoundland. To this country, where there is fresh criticism this morning of Canada's former Defence Minister Harjit Sajjan and his actions during the Taliban takeover of Kabul. The Globe and Mail is reporting Sajjan instructed Canadian Special Forces to rescue Afghan 6, while others with closer ties to Canada were still trying to get out. Let's bring in Janice McGregor from our Parliamentary Bureau. Janice, what exactly is the Globe reporting?
John, I should say CBC News is still working to verify these revelations about what happened after the fall of Kabul in August 2021, when Canadian Special Forces were sent in to rescue Canadian citizens as well as Afghans that had supported Canadian activities in the country, people like interpreters, drivers. 3 military sources told the Globe and Mail that then Defence Minister Harjit Sajjan intervened, that he asked Special Forces to divert away from their operational priorities to rescue 225 Afghan Sikhs, based on a request he'd received from a Canadian Sikh organization. The sources said that this diversion impacted the military's ability to rescue people that were on Canada's priority list. And they said that the forces perceived this to be an order from the minister, and they were angry about it. In a statement to CBC News this morning, Sajjan disputes this. He said the Afghan Sikhs were already in the proximity of Kabul's airport and that the Canadian Armed Forces was not directed to prioritize the evacuation of these Afghan Sikhs over Canadians, interpreters, or others who had helped Canada. He says he provided direction through the chain of command to assist this group that were eligible to come to Canada as refugees. But he says the operational details were left to the tactical decision makers on the ground. And the evacuation of this particular group ultimately unsuccessful.
Now, Janice, there are questions around a potential political context to all of this. Walk us through that.
John, you'll remember that this evacuation was happening just as the 2021 election kicked off. Minister Sajjan is a prominent member of Canada's Sikh community, and the federal Liberal Party has benefited from the support of Sikh Canadian voters in the past. In a statement this morning, Sajjan said it was clear that Sikhs and other minorities were part of government policy to support and assist vulnerable Afghans. And he said he can only surmise that if he did not wear a turban, no one would question his actions.
Janice McGregor in our Parliamentary Bureau. Thanks, Janice.
You're welcome.
Un inquebrantable compromiso con el pueblo boliviano y con la democracia.
Wearing a vest that says apprehended, Bolivia's former army chief is presented to the media. Juan Jose Zuniga is accused of leading a coup attempt. Bolivian armed forces stormed the presidential palace Wednesday, but later pulled back. Zuniga initially said this was done at the behest of the president, Luis Arce, but he didn't provide any evidence for this claim. For months, Bolivia has been dealing with severe economic crisis. Israel's defense minister is drawing attention with his latest comments about the possibility of war with Hezbollah. Yoav Gallant told reporters Israel's military is capable of taking Lebanon, quote, back to the Stone Age. Gallant made that comment as he was wrapping up his trip to Washington. He also insisted his government prefers a diplomatic solution on the Israel-Lebanon border. But Canada is now making contingency plans in case Israel and Hezbollah, in fact, do go to war. The chief of the defense staff, General Wayne Eyre, told CBC News the military is drawing up plans to evacuate roughly 20,000 Canadians from Lebanon. Murray Brewster unpacks the challenges.
Well, we can't do it alone.
General Wayne Eyre on the enormous task of evacuating non-combatants from Lebanon.
It will very much be a coalition effort, and we're tied in very tight with our allies.
On Tuesday, Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly warned Canadians to leave Lebanon as quickly as possible. The Israeli army says it plans to attack Hezbollah in the southern portion of that country. All it needs is the political green light. Israeli media reported recently that Canada was looking at an evacuation of 45,000 people or more. But Eyre says the figure they're working with is 20,000, and that's based on historic data from the last time the military had to do this in 2006. A Canadian military team is currently in Lebanon and coordinating with the embassy in Beirut in case the worst happens. Similar to 2006, the plan today involves evacuating people from Lebanon by sea to Cyprus, where they would board flights for Canada. In recent weeks, Hezbollah warned the island government could be a target if it assists Israel in an attack on Lebanon. Some of the militant group's missiles have a range to reach Cyprus. Eyre, however, dismissed the threats.
We don't believe those threats are credible.
Eyre says, as far as allies know, Israel has no plan to use Cyprus as a base for offensive operations. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Ottawa.
We're expecting the Trudeau government to announce today that it's expanding the federal dental program. It appears children under the age of 18 will now be eligible, along with people who receive a disability tax credit. In addition, or rather in total, it could mean another 1.5 million people will be added to the eligibility list. The applicants must be uninsured with an annual household income of under $90,000. Finally, the Governor-General is making 83 new appointments to the Order of Canada. Mary Simon announced the new additions this morning. They include trailblazing athletes, academics, and billboard charting performers. Olivia Stefanovich reports.
From small-town Canadian girl turned global rocker Avril Lavigne to prolific French-Canadian singer-songwriter Danielle Lavoie, cultural icons are being recognized by Rideau Hall, joining a list of 83 new recipients to one of the country's highest honors.
When I first got the news, I was absolutely shocked and humbled.
Jim Kite was the first deaf player in NHL history. Now he's being inducted into the Order of Canada after decades championing the rights of athletes with physical disabilities.
There's so many people that told me that I could not do certain things because of my hearing impairment. And I just had a little voice inside me say, oh yeah, just watch me.
Educators are also being celebrated. Solomon Rat for preserving and revitalizing the Cree language.
It is a reawakening of Indigenous knowledge system. The young adults wanted to learn.
The appointment to the Order of Canada is still sinking in for Ottawa's Bill Jansen, a Mennonite leader instrumental in the creation of the private sponsorship of refugees program.
There was a feeling we have to do something.
Jansen helped thousands of lives find a new home here, a country now saying thanks by honoring his efforts. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Well, she has been called innovative and a passionate community builder. Tina Jones is one of the recipients of the Order of Canada and is announced this morning, and we're going to talk to her this half hour on Information Radio. There are 4 people from Manitoba, so we're going to share more of that news throughout this half hour of 4 that are on the list of 83, as you just heard those announcements just coming out in the last half hour. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Good morning, everyone. I'm here with our team at Information Radio. Nice sunshine in the downtown area, and thanks for joining us. Whether you're listening on 89.3 FM, 990 AM, or you're on the app or YouTube today. Well, in addition to talking to Tina Jones this half hour, a special reunion is happening today with residential school students who will gather in Birtle, Manitoba. We're going to hear from one of them at 8:20. He says sharing his experience is like peeling away at a scab. It leaves him feeling a little bit lighter every time. And he thinks today is going to be both healing and hopeful and hurtful. Let's get to what is happening in the news otherwise with Heather Wiles.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba's trucking sector is using temporary foreign workers at the highest rate in years as they try to find drivers. But some of those companies are accused of taking advantage of the newcomers. The Manitoba Trucking Association has heard complaints. Some companies are making newcomers pay for their work permits. That is illegal. We're going to hear what else is being said coming up. And a relative of a couple killed in the Carberry bus crash last June says she is conflicted with the decision not to charge the driver who crossed in front of an oncoming semi-trailer. 17 people were killed. 8 others were injured. We'll hear more reaction in our next local news at 8:30.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, with a quick look at a nice forecast, here's Abby.
16 degrees in the city, mainly sunny today. We're going to see some clouds rolling. We're heading to a high of 22, and we'll see rain in the evening, about 10 to 20 millimeters.
All right, thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
Right now, 12 in Winnipeg and a cooperative morning commute. If you have a problem, call Corey, 788-3093. Well, I neglected to update my temperature, so here's some good news. It's not 12 anymore. It's 16 degrees now in Winnipeg, so we've gone up 4 in the last hour. So 16 in Winnipeg and lots of sunshine. Brandon's mostly cloudy, but sitting right now at 13 degrees. Well, as I mentioned, today residential school survivors will travel to Birtle, Manitoba for a reunion that will be healing and hurtful. Charlie Bittern is one of them. The 77-year-old from Barons River First Nation spent 4 of his high school years in Birtle, where he was known for running track. But when he was 19 years old, he was forced to run 80 kilometers during a blizzard as a punishment. In fact, he was covering for something that another student did. His run in 1967 is the subject of a documentary called Bimibatuin, Where I Ran. Here's a portion of the doc about what happened to Charlie.
The school I went to had a big farm. Being one of the milkers, I had this helper. And this junior boy, his name was Bernal. And I kind of looked after him. There was this one cow, had a calf, it happened to be a little bull. So Bernal and I raised this bull. In '67, that bull, his name was Bobby, they entered him in Toronto Royal Winter Fair. The principal took Bernal and me to Toronto in November. After the Royal Winter Fair, as we were leaving Winnipeg, Bernal and I sit in the back seat, talking, laughing away. Bernal kind of released himself with the gas and stunk up the station wagon. The principal pulls over and he says, who done that? I said, I did. Now he said, you can run in front of the station wagon, kind of guide me. So he threw me out. And that was about 7 o'clock in the evening when I started running. You know, as I was battling the storm, up and down them hills on #1 highway, my lungs were just burning. My legs were getting weak. That was my punishment. And my friend, my little buddy, Bernal, he says, I knew you used to run. You could run 30 miles. But after 30 miles and beyond, he said, I started getting worried. At times, he said, I tell the principal, stop. As the years went by, after I left high school in 67, 68, I never seen Bernal after that. Then he came, I believe it was about 2010, there was a knock on the door up in Barons River, and there was Bernal. Welcome in. Came, then we were having coffee. And then just before he was leaving, he says, Charlie, he says, I come to thank you. And I said, for what for? He says, remember that night? You ran all night. He said, that was my punishment you took for me. He said, you protected me. So he got up, hugged me. After he left, not very long after, or a year or so after, I heard that he passed on. Each time I talk about my residential school experiences, it's just like peeling a scab off your skin. It hurts. Hard to talk about it, the experiences we had. You cannot fathom the depths of what the students went through.
As part of a documentary from Erica Daniels called Bimubatuin, Where I Ran. And if you're on YouTube with us this morning, you've been seeing scenes from that. As I mentioned, Charlie Bittern is going back to Birtle today, on his way there this morning, in fact, for a residential school survivors reunion. I spoke with him earlier this week. How often do you think about that night, that long run?
Every time I go up west, it reminded me when I look at that tree on that highway there where the principal kicked me out.
I know in the documentary you said that sharing your story over the years has been painful, but also every time you share it, you feel lighter, you said, and that you hope that almost for other residential school survivors that might be the case as well.
Well, that is a whole general idea about our Birtle reunion. There are some students we haven't met over 50, 55 years, and it's meeting the old former survival students that are still alive. That's the whole idea of having this reunion.
How many people are you hoping or are you thinking might be able to be there?
Approximately 100 people, and like the surrounding reserves, like one of the reserves there, they're bringing a busload of elders that went to school there. One of the reserves that's close to Birtle, Sioux Valley.
When's the last time you would have been together with Birtle residential school survivors that were your fellow students?
Well, actually, this is the first time I'll meet most of them. And the elder that's going to be speaking, they're the 8-year-old elder. I've seen her an off time, but other than that, I've never seen the other former students since we left Birtle.
What do you think that's going to be like for you, Charlie?
Well, one part, it's going to be very exciting to meet the former students. Of course, we're all elders now, but the other part is I think it's going to be the painful thing when we go and go to the site where the residential school is, in front of the old residential school. I think this is where it's going to be emotional, and I think there's going to be anger and things like that, I think, will arise.
Tell me a little bit about the person that is special to you, who you've alluded to is an 80-year-old survivor. That what were you guys like as students together?
She's from my reserve, and she was in the residential school 2 years ahead of me, and she was I call her my garden angel, because she showed me the do's and the don'ts in a residential school. Like, say, the auditorium, we had our first dance at the auditorium, and the girls sat on one side and we sat on the other side across the hallway. And then when the music started, like, I just sat there. So she came, she says, "You got to dance." She says, "If you don't, the principal will send you up the dorm and you'll be punished." So first time I ever was. So she, like Donna, helped me quite a bit, and she's going to be the speaker there.
How important were students, those student relationships with each other in getting through those years in residential school?
We guided and we protected each other. And one of the first on the agenda is we want to acknowledge the town of Birdle. Like, the town of Birdle were very generous to us, and they helped the students, like, as we go through town, and the town people are very generous to us, and we want to acknowledge the town of Birdle. And also the former students of Birdle Collegiate, they were really good to us, like the farmers, the farmer kids, and the town people, and the town students were very, very good with us, and we want to acknowledge that. In fact, we're giving a flag to the town of Birdle for their acknowledgement and for their generosity to the students of Birdle Indian Residential School. I myself, like, when I first went to Birdle Collegiate, I was cultural shock. Coming in from one classroom, we weren't allowed to go to stop in any stores after school. So what they did is there's this restaurant. We'd go in from the front door, and then you will keep an eye, because we had a principal or supervisors driving around town, making sure we don't go into any of the stores. So what they used to do was they used to let us in the front door and sneak us out the back door. Station wagon go by, and then we sneak out the back door. And the town people helped us like that. They protected us. And if you're caught out of line, you didn't go anywhere, maybe 3 or 4 weekends, you were locked up in your dorm.
In your documentary, you mentioned a boy that you looked out for, Bernal.
Yeah.
How much do you wish that he was able to be there for this reunion, for this gathering?
You know, I was thinking about him. In fact, I have a lot of thought about him. He would have been very, very happy. I'm sure, as I speak to you, he would have been there. But I got some relatives of him that are going to be there. I think one of his stepbrothers is going to be there. I think he's traveling right now as we speak from Sulacout.
That's amazing. What do you hope people come away with at the end of Thursday's gathering?
I think a lot of us former students, I think us getting together and talking about the good times, and mostly the good times we had and the bad times, I guess, but I think it's really going to have a positive impact to the former students, because we haven't seen each other, and some of the stories we'll share, and we want to make this annual thing, like helping the town of Birdle, like bring economy to them. Like last summer, I visited one of my classmates, one of my mischievous friends in high school. We didn't see each other for over 50 years, and it's just like happened yesterday.
Well, I wish you a peaceful time on Thursday, Charlie. Thank you very much for speaking with us.
Yes, thank you very much, too. And I know what they're going to be calling me when I meet my former students from the high school or from the residence. They call me the runner, or else Chuck.
I'm grateful that you had some time to speak with us ahead of the event. Thank you so very much.
Same here.
Charlie Bittern, a residential school survivor from Barons River First Nation. I spoke with him on Tuesday. He is on the way right now to Birtle for this reunion. By the way, he mentioned Donna, one of his fellow students, that is Donna Green, who will bring remarks today as well. There's also plans to honor the late Elijah Harper, who was also a student in Birtle and, of course, went on to be an influential provincial and federal politician. Things get underway at 10 o'clock, and CBC's Chelsea Kemp will have coverage throughout today from Birtle. It is 8:25 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on the app or YouTube. I'm Marcy Marcusa. We're live in downtown Winnipeg on with the show this morning. It is partly cloudy now. It's 16 degrees. We got rain coming tonight, but for the day it's going to be nice. Mostly sunny for the day and a high of 22. Well, let's get to developing news. 83 recipients were announced this morning as receiving from Governor General Mary Simon the Order of Canada. It is one of the top honors in this country, and there are 4 Manitobans on the list. My next guest is one of them. With us now is Tina Jones, who is a passionate community builder. She's chair of the Health Sciences Centre Foundation. She's also founder of Jones & Company, and she was involved in sports leadership, promotion, and philanthropy, and a partner of the Rink. Long list in your bio, but congratulations to you, Tina.
Good morning. Thank you, Marcy. It's an incredible day.
How are you feeling about it?
Well, it's pretty overwhelming, actually.
I can't imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
When did you find out? Because you've received the Order of Manitoba before, and I received a phone call from the Lieutenant Governor. How does this work? How did you find out?
So similar to the process that you went through receiving the Order of Manitoba, and by the way, congratulations. It's incredible for sure. The Governor General's office called me on April 18th and asked me if I would accept the appointment to the Order of Canada, and I, of course, didn't really know what to say, but they asked me again if I would accept, and I said yes, for sure. It's just an incredible honor, yes.
What motivates you to lead through your lens in the business community, but also to offer leadership through philanthropy? How do you see your role in building our community?
Well, that's a great question, and really, every day that we work as volunteers at the Health Sciences Centre Foundation, we see what philanthropy does to innovation. And when a doctor is able to receive a new robot or any kind of new equipment that we have donated or we've purchased for the doctors through the donations that we receive, it's just, it's enlightening. I don't know that there's any other group you can work for that changes thousands of lives every day. And that's what motivates us and our whole group. And this honor really belongs to the entire group at the Health Science Centre Foundation. There's a big group of us. Our board has 20 people, and the office has about 20 people, and it's just quite incredible.
Why did you get involved in that area of building, like around healthcare? Was there a personal motivation there, or was it just once you started to see the results, it became something so worthwhile?
Well, I was asked to join the board by a friend, and I really didn't think I had time, and I was donating to the group already, and I just didn't think I had time, but I knew how challenging it was and thought I should challenge myself a little bit more and learn more about healthcare and healthcare in Manitoba specifically. And so I jumped in about 12 years ago.
There's people listening that might feel like, oh, I've been asked to join a board. I'm not sure if it's for me, or I don't know how to help out. And there's a lack of volunteers in so many sectors, especially coming out of the pandemic. What would be your pitch to people for what it gives back to a person when you make the time, if you can?
Right. If you can make the time, it's a great honor to be able to be involved in volunteer organizations. There are so many incredible organizations in Manitoba, and Manitoba has so many philanthropic families and donors. And when you ask people for money for a great cause, sometimes a light goes on. And if you can find that light switch, then I really think that people should jump out and volunteer as often as possible. It's a great honor.
So Tina, obviously you found it in April, so you've had to keep this under wraps for some time that you're receiving the Order of Canada.
Right.
What did your phone blow up this morning, or what did that look like for you today?
It really is, and it's a thrill to speak with you this morning too, Marcy. Thank you for everything that you do in our community, and it's just a great honor. I'm just going to enjoy the day.
Who knew? Were you allowed to tell anyone, or did you?
Yes, so they told me that I could tell my friends and family, and of course my husband was with me when we found out, but then the first call was to our kids, and it's just, there's so many sacrifices that we all make to be able to do great things in our community, but my kids and my husband, I just really commend them sticking with me.
I love that. Tina, enjoy your day. Deep congratulations to you, and thanks so much for being with us on CBC.
Thank you, Marcy. Take care.
So Tina Jones is one of 4 Manitobans who will receive the Order of Canada. We're going to hear about all of them in the news coming up. Right now, though, Janet Stewart has popped in to tell us what the call-in question is on Radio Noon.
Hello, Marcy. Today we're actually talking about gardening, and we're talking about native plants. Our question today would be, I don't know, what would be a good question today? How much do you love... Look at me, thinking out loud on television and radio. Can you tell it's early? Our guest today is Nick Friesenhuis. He is the designer behind Dogwood Landscape Design.
Okay.
And he works with edible plants, with grasses, with stones, with native Manitoba plants. So basically, what questions do you have about landscape design? What's your favorite thing about a natural Manitoba landscape? And how important is it to you to stick with native plants? Those are the questions we're asking today. Join our conversation. Anything you'd like to say, including Janet, have another cup of coffee, 204-788-3747.
All right, thanks, Janet.
Thank you.
Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it's partly cloudy, 16 degrees. What a beautiful morning. But we're going to see increasing clouds, a high of 22, and then tonight, rain on the way tonight and tomorrow. Manitoba trucking companies are running out of people to put behind the wheel. More businesses are turning to temporary foreign workers for help, but some are accused of taking advantage of newcomers who hope to live in Canada. Diwa Marcelino is an advocate for migrant workers. He has spoken to newcomers paying to get their work permit, which is illegal. While some businesses breaking the law have been penalized, Marcelino says enforcement has to be stronger.
The laws are useless if there's no enforcement. The laws are useless if workers don't know the law. The laws are useless if workers don't have the agency to complain, if they're fearful of being deported.
Marcelino is the brother of Manitoba's Labour Minister. The Manitoba Trucking Association also wants to root out companies exploiting temporary workers. They say most companies are great at supporting newcomers. Winnipeg police hope to have more information today on a catastrophic explosion that blew a house off its foundation and seriously damaged several others. It happened yesterday morning in Transcona on Camrose Bay. One man who lives next door says it was like an earthquake that blew him off his feet. Police have been searching for the people who lived in the home. None of the neighbors were hurt, and police are still on the scene this morning protecting the area now because the homes nearby are not safe. A relative of a couple killed in the Carberry bus crash last June says she's conflicted with the decision not to charge the driver who crossed in front of an oncoming semi. 17 people were killed. 8 others were injured. The Crown and RCMP say the bus driver had blind spots that contributed to him not seeing the semi. That played a role in the Crown concluding there are no grounds for a criminal charge or an offence under the Highway Traffic Act. Frank and Rose Perzello died in the crash. Their niece, Chantel Urich, thinks the driver could have done more to check for oncoming traffic, but she understands the Crown's decision.
There is no winners, and there's in this at all. There's only losers. And what I mean by that is that no matter what the Crown came up with, there wasn't going to be a good result.
Investigators say the driver wasn't impaired or texting at the time of the crash, and police say there were no mechanical problems with that bus. A historic apology for Dakota people in Manitoba. Portage-la Prairie, the city of Portage, apologized to the Dakota Plains First Nations at a ceremony yesterday. It's for a decision more than a century ago that led to the community being expelled from land they owned in Portage-la Prairie. Chief Donald Smoke says an apology is long overdue.
I strongly believe that we were put here to sort of die off, and to be dependent to the point where we're no longer a people. I think about my father and my uncle, the past hereditary chiefs here in Dakota Plains. It's something that they've been wanting for years to happen, is that acknowledgement.
Both communities say the apology is the first step towards reconciliation and a better future together. A reunion to help survivors of the Birtle Residential School heal. An organizer of today's gathering, Charlie Bittern, says meeting other former students is both exciting and painful because they all have shared experiences of being taken from their families and forced to attend residential school. He says sharing his story of survival helps him feel lighter.
There are some students we haven't met over 50, 55 years. It's meeting the old former survival students that are still alive. That's the whole idea.
Bittern expects about 100 people to be at today's reunion, and he wants to make it an annual tradition in Birtle. 4 Manitobans are being awarded the Order of Canada. Heading into Canada Day, Governor-General Mary Simon has announced 83 new appointments to the order. 4 Manitobans include Estelle Simons, who worked to mitigate effects of allergic reactions and diseases, especially among children. Tina Keeper, an award-winning actress and producer who was one of the first Cree members of Parliament. Tina Jones, who we heard from this past half hour, co-owner of Jones & Company Wine Merchants and chair of the Health Sciences Centre Foundation, being recognized as a community builder. And William Kirby of the Centre for Contemporary Canadian Art, recognized for promoting Canadian art and artists. And you can cancel this off your summer calendar. Neil Young and Crazy Horse say they have been forced to take a break from the rest of their Love Earth tour. The tour was going to play Winnipeg July 17th, but in a post, Neil Young's group says some of the band got sick after their Detroit stop and still aren't fully recovered. If you had tickets to the show in Winnipeg, Ticketmaster says you will be refunded. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, Heather Wells, thank you.
Thank you.
Heather Wells and Megan Ketchison and Alana Cole out there in our news center. Thank you, guys. Thanks to our hardworking team of associate producers, our leaders in unit, Leif Larson and Nellie Gonzalez, as well as our live team here. So thank you, Kevin Nipatebo. Thank you to Corey Funk and to Abby Adiyemi. Speaking of Corey, anything to say?
Hey, northbound St. Mary's at Lyndale, there's a stalled car blocking that curb lane. So keep left to get around that. And smooth sailing now is Highway number 1, just outside of Headingley. We're going east and west, so no more detours. Just go on and cruise.
Abby.
The north will be seeing highs around 20 and 6 for Churchill, while the south we're going to be seeing rain beginning this evening, and that would roll into tomorrow. We're seeing about 10 to 20 millimeters.
All right. Thanks, Abby. Take care. Be well, everybody. Thanks for listening to the show this morning. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. The show is Information Radio, and we hope you join us again tomorrow heading into the long weekend. If you want to share your plans, you can always call us, 788-3205. Coming up next, reality TV. Has it done more harm or more good in the world? That's on The Current. Stay right here.